Welcome to Thorin's YouTube channel, the godfather of all my fellow gingers.
Now, every day I have my delicious portion of gamer subs. You can get 10% off anything on their store, including all their delicious energy formula and other products, using the code Thorin, Thorin, at gamersubs.gg. Now, when I was having my gamer subs, I like to surf Reddit in the morning, catch up on the news. And after we did the Summoning Insight episode, very briefly afterwards, it was actually announced, we'd been speculating it, that actually indeed Zeus did not sign with T1. They ended up getting Doran, and bizarrely Zeus goes to Hanwha Life. So I knew already, man alive, that move in itself is going to be drama, but get ready for the T1 fans to go crazy, since they're all branded that whole ZOFGK thing as though that's like a thing now, even though it only started a few months ago. So I knew, right, there's drama coming, there's drama brewing inside this internet browser brew there from Gamersubs. I thought, you know what, with the emotional damage these T1 fans are getting inflicted on them now by losing their beloved Zeus, you just know there's going to be loads of incel tears everywhere around here. And then as I actually started reading their comments, it was even worse. It's like they'd been on that goof juice, the way they were just typing any old nonsense that just meant absolutely nothing. And I'll tell you what, I predict right now, Doran, no matter how well he plays, every time they lose, he's going to get torn up by these plebs. He is just going to be raw meat thrown to these hungry T1 dogs, in this case. Just the terrible fans from around the world and all of the internet that just worship Faker and T1. By the way, shout out to Delicious Gamersubs. Get 10% off using the code Thorin, Thorin. If you don't know, emotional damage is a nice peach flavour. Incel Tears is peach cream, so it kind of like balances it out a little bit. Browser Brew is blackcurrant, that's a very delicious one. Goof Juice is strawberry kiwi, and yes, it is associated with you-know-who, that little guy there. And then Raw Meat is watermelon and cantaloupe, so all types of flavours, whereas there's only one flavour. I don't know, fan whining about that would be the flavour that they would use for T1, I guess. Top laner Zeus has chosen not to renew his contract with T1, the reigning back-to-back world champions, and has signed with Hanwha Life Esports, who were the summer champions of the LCK and quarter-finalists at Worlds. Now, this is not just a shock, but has set off an insane drama bomb of rumour, judgment, fan tantrums, like entitlement, all sorts of stuff. Oh, by the way, a million things of hearsay that have never been confirmed by any official sources, but everyone, including me in this video, is taking them and they're building off of those, their opinions, their speculations, their angles. So as you can imagine, this has been a dense jungle of just nonsense, and I'm here hopefully with my machete to just chop my way through and guide you to what I think is, when you read between the lines, some semblance of either the truth or the reality of the situation. So the move itself, I will just do briefly. On a normal video, this would be the whole video, but this is going to be like 10% of it, because obviously the move itself isn't the big deal, is it? Even though, by the way, it could be enormous for the power shift in League of Legends, but it's actually the drama around it and what that implies and what it says about T1 fans and T1 and Zeus and agents is actually the bigger issue, which is what everyone's milking, obviously, on all their videos. So let's just do the original move, the way I do my roster moves. I always ask, should the team that let the player go or kick them, should they have done that move? Should they, is the person they're replacing them with good enough? Should the player go to another team, or is this a good team for him to go to? And is that the right spot for him, or was it the right move for that team? There's obviously like 4 angles you go with: the two parties, the players in this case, or one player going either way, or the players, if they're multiple, who go in either direction, and the two teams. Obviously, they're the 4 parties. So should T1 have let, we're going to get into that later, they had no choice in this particular matter. Should they have let Zeus leave? No, of course not. He is, in my opinion, the best overall player in T1, because actually, even some of the other players, I do sometimes wonder how would they pair with other people. Like, I do think Kerry is brilliant and potentially the best support player ever, but how would he work with a different type of ADC? I'm not actually certain. Also, you look at Faker. Faker might be a really good captain and do some good shot calls and the occasional clutch player, but what will happen if he actually has to just carry from mid lane all the time, like might happen in this lineup? Exactly. So I think when you look at it, not only was Zeus potentially the best top laner, I also think he was, like, crucially the best top laner for this team. So for me, I think it's crazy. Like, of the laners, this is absolutely the one player you could not let go. Out of him, Gumushi and Faker, this is actually the most important piece. Bearing in mind, remember, you're going to think, no, but Faker is. What if Faker either role swapped to jungle, so you could get, like, Chovy, or Faker just said, I'm retiring because I won Worlds and I've had a long career and I was injured and I was banging my head, etc. In that scenario, if you'd have gotten, like, a Chovy, or, depending on what year we're talking about, a Scout or a BDD, that would be potentially Maybe not as a captain as good, but it might just be a better mid laner. And then with Faker not in the game, maybe that just wins you worlds right there. Maybe that wins you everything. So I think Zeus had enormous value. In fact, I think one of the most telling things about this tantrum people are having is a lot of people who never gave Zeus his flowers when he was on T1, even though their T1 stands supposedly, all of a sudden are sort of realizing the incredible value this guy had, even though they're presenting it not as he added so much to the team, but like he screwed us and he owes it to play for us. But I think that belies something deeper. So I think this guy had insane value. No top laner in the world had as much overall value specifically for a team that could win worlds, in my opinion. He was a great laner. He was very good in team fights. He could carry. He could play the tank. He had the flex picks like the Yone and stuff like that, which as a result meant that you could actually still draft even when Gumayushi or Faker were actually like somewhat draft pinched, or they couldn't play the meta champions, but you wanted to threaten a Yone or something like that and see if Pete or Yasuo or something like that. So for me, he is, like people like Dom say, they think he's the best top laner ever. I think he's at least a contender for best top laner ever. He's extremely good. His resume is very legit. It's not actually insane because there's only the one LCK title. Obviously, 2 worlds is very, very good, but after that, he doesn't have the MSIs, he doesn't have LCK, so he needs a bit more if you want to go from resume for best top laner ever, but he obviously, play-wise, has had a fantastic body of work. I think, quite frankly, he looks like, and this is also it's a nightmare they've let him go, he looks like he could be an elite top laner for many more years. Like, consider he's been playing, like, this is only going to be next year his 4th full year in league. Yeah, he played in the spring of 2021, but he was actually the guy they took out. They were using Canna by the time they were at Worlds, and then the other 4 that you all know, the OFGK part of ZOFGK. So for me, he's only like a third of the way into his career. He could still have 2/3 of his career. Could potentially, by the way, be about to hit his prime now. You could argue, actually, he really came on the boil the last 2 years. And the first year and a half, he was just kind of a bit all right, or just like he had his issues and he actually would essentially massively struggle internationally. If you remember, though, now he's actually dope internationally. So for me, this guy could play many, many, many more years. And this would actually be a piece in T1. Bear in mind, you know one day Faker will retire. This is the piece you build around. This is the most important piece. But for whatever reason, they didn't want to. They didn't want to keep him. They didn't do the things they could have done already. Like, without getting into it yet, because I'm going to talk about this later after I talk about the move, I think they have completely misplayed this offseason. Because even though you might think, well, they got all the other players they want. Yes, but those other players, it turns out, actually don't make as much sense as signings, especially the signings they themselves have done, reducing their actual value of their contracts. Except if you get all 5, including Zeus, who actually, bear in mind, you already had Faker and he might retire in the future, and you said you want this team to inherit his like legacy or whatever. This is actually the central piece. You've missed the crown jewel. You fucked the whole thing up. But again, I'll get into that. Pause for a second. So then let's ask about Doran coming in. Now, obviously, we know they didn't want Doran. In fact, it's inferred they wanted Zeus first, but they wanted him on their terms, which are massively reduced terms. And I think insulting terms for a guy who's potentially like the best player at Worlds 2 years in a row, won you world championships. But their angle instead, I think, is like, you know, if we couldn't have you, then we want Keen. But I think it's more like, if we can't get Zeus at the price we want, then we want Keen. And then it turns out Keen's not available either. He's back with Gen G. So instead, you've ended up with Doran, who of the ones available, because of the timing of how badly you've messed up this offseason, and the whole year, by the way, before there even was an offseason, when you could talk to the player and other people could not, based on Riot's rules. They've absolutely misplayed this because they've ended up with Doran, right? Now, I've already seen a lot of cope about this. I don't actually think Doran's a bad player. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I already see people initially were angry, then they've instantly gone to like the stage of denial or whatever, and that like cycles of grief. And they're already like, no, this is fine. This is okay. This is totally. Then they're doing the bargaining. They're moving their way through. But don't worry, they will at the end get back because they even used to do this to Zeus, and they will hate on Doran. I guarantee you. He is going to be the number one person blamed for all their losses. And don't worry, there are plenty of big losses coming soon. I don't think his team will win any trophies. So Doran actually isn't a bad move, at least in isolation. That's the problem. If this is another team, there's actually the majority of teams in the world. If you say Doran is joining as your top player, that is an upgrade, at minimum a side grade, and it, quite frankly, for almost every other team in the world, wouldn't be a bad move. The problem is, just like I said for Zeus, isn't even just how good he is as a top laner. It's in the context of what he does for the rest of T1 and how he balances them out. That's the problem. Doran doesn't do any of those things. So specifically in the context of T1 and how they play, this is actually fucking terrible. Because remember, Doran is good. I mean, he's very good sometimes domestically. He's not insane. For me, he was never a generational talent, but he's someone who has improved a lot over the years. And considering he started as like he's the carry player and Swords the tag, he definitely got way better. In fact, if anything, now you probably trust him more when he's not the carry, don't you? So he has developed his game and allows you on teams with a great ADC to do the front to back team fight, etc. The problem here is that's not T1 and that's not their style. So my issue here is also think about his trend. His trend is now he's really good domestically. I mean, he's won 4 of the last 5 splits with 2 different teams that people don't know, in which period Z1 won none, because obviously the other split was won by Genji when he isn't on it, when they had Kane. But the problem is, he's not very good internationally, and that's where his biggest problems come so far, including this last World. He had some nightmare games. Meanwhile, T1 is the inverse of that. Their issues are domestically. In fact, they've gotten worse and worse domestically, and their only success is international. At the moment, it's not even at the MSIs, although they can be fairly clutch there to still get the top 3 placing. It's at Worlds. The biggest, most high-pressure, important tournament of the year. The one place that right now you don't expect Doran to perform. And that was a key player in terms of Zeus for T1. So I think T1 is in such a bad position because they've got someone with a choke factor internationally in big-pressure games. And their whole strength, as they just displayed in this final, I think BLG outplayed them for most of the series. That is the main saving grace of their team, along with how they can play the weird pick comps and the carrier drafts and all those angles. Like, I don't know how you do this now when you got Doran instead of Zeus. Like, T1 themselves used to have that issue before season 13 Worlds last year, where they were just good domestically and then they had the problems internationally and made all those finals and lost. But it's been the opposite now. Like, now it's only the big pressure games that they tend to bring out their best in. Like, yeah, you could say the spring finals, they were good. But then, like, MSI, they weren't even good as a team, but they were clutch and they could pull it out against the bigger teams because other teams felt the pressure, like G2, who was outplaying them but still lost. EWC, they actually just murked everyone. Worlds, they got better and better and better as the tournament went on. So my problem with Doran is this. He's not an elite carry top, which Zeus was. So already that's an issue. Not just for him, because you can have teams where the top doesn't carry, but the issue now is, now Faker and or Gumayushi have to carry most of the games. So when Gumayushi's in a meta where he doesn't have his meta champions, as he can't play the meta, then you're in trouble. When he's in a meta where he can't pick certain champions he likes, because the appropriate lane partner is not something that's that good for carrier. Interesting detail. It's not about whether carrier is good on the champion. It's about whether it locks off carrier from like roaming, making fucking picks, doing crazy moves, sometimes being able to do damage. Some of the unique idiosyncratic things about carrier, it just means they don't have their strength. And then obviously Faker typically isn't trying to be a lane bully, isn't trying to be the mega carry anymore. He's even trying to like finesse even the carry picks, sometimes just to take them in the draft for value, or to fuck with the opponent, or as a response, or what it does for the comp, or to allow a specific type of a pick comp, or he steals an ult, etc. with a Silas. We just have to be a great Silas. Now we would have to be. Now we would have to actually be what Chovy and Knight and these players are and just straight carry out of the mid lane. And spoiler, that doesn't look like it's going to happen. Yeah, Faker can get it together for like 2 or 3 games in a best of 5. He never even has a best of 5 nowadays where he has 5 games that are really good. People like Chovy and Knight do. They do that in this world. Like, Faker can't do that anymore because he's just too old in his career. He's injured. He's played a bazillion years, and that's no longer his role. He knows that's not the way his bread's buttered. I don't think he can go back to that. So I think this is bad, specifically for T1 and how Zeus functioned. Like, by the way, your meta dependence as T1 now just got even worse. Now, what on earth do you do if it's a melee mid meta? You can't now flex it to Zeus or sometimes take it when you can otherwise win in the draft by tricking. That's going to be the flex. Now when ADC mids come out, you're not going to have anywhere to send them, are you? It's just going to be like Gumayushi can't play them sometimes, like when it was the Zeri. And now there's no way Faker can play them. So I think already you're going to get into so many troubles. That whole thing where T1 could craft like a counter meta. I think you're just going to be a bad version of the meta now. And if you've ever seen these 2 worlds, the tournament, the games T1 plays where they do the normal meta picks, they are the ones they lose. And then it famously sort of wakes them up and they realize, well, we can't just do the meta. So we better do our approach or what we think works or what makes sense to us. And then they just craft like a MacGyver comp that just works. And then if they have epic plays, it looks like it was the right move. But that isn't the meta. Other people couldn't do that. You have to have T1 and they no longer have T1. They no longer have Zeus. He was the Swiss Army knife of their arsenal in this particular case. Some of the others are just a hammer or just a sword. They can only do one thing. Now imagine, by the way, here's how you know that this Zeus loss is everything. Because imagine now, skip forwards to 2025 Worlds, and imagine I tell you T1's in the playoffs. You know T1 never places below top 4, Faker goes to Worlds. They're in the playoffs, quarters or semis, and you're drawing against one of the best teams in the world, and listen to who the top laner is for their team. It's Bin. It's 369. Oh, remember T1 always beats 369. Remember that narrative? It's the Shy. Oh, the Shy. Remember they beat him? Tell you what, you won't feel as confident as you used to when they had Zeus. When they had Zeus, you always thought that's the one guy, if he plays to his game, can handle that player, can counter that guy, can have his own carry games against that guy. You go and you look elsewhere, you don't suddenly feel confident. Any of those names come through and they're at Worlds, you're going to be a little bit nervous. You're going to be scared. Do you feel as confident as you did now when T1 had their top lane? And of course you don't. And then here's another one for you. Here's how you know, even though I do think people went too far on Doran domestically, the guy is a 4-time LCK champion on 2 different teams. The problem is, some of those championships came against Zeus, didn't they, when he was on Gen G? And remember, how did everyone talk about the top lane matchups in those finals? Did they go, wow, Doran won all these finals over Zeus? I guess he's the best top lane in the world. No, everyone said, what happened to Zeus? Oh, he's choked, or he's been beaten by fucking Doran. No one gave Doran credit. They just pointed out Zeus's failure. That's how you know what people actually think of these players when it comes down to brass tacks. So let's just get some hard pills to swallow out there for the T1 stance that are inferred by your own emotional reaction and just analysis of what this move is going to mean. If Zeus wasn't some like elite top laner, like just a truly elite top laner of his own, because they imply he wasn't because of the Porby shit, remember? And like everyone's just a fucking minion of Faker. If he isn't actually like a GOAT top lane player, by the way, it's way better than Doran and should be your central piece to lock down, then what's the issue? Because think about it, right? You're sending Zeus, 1-time LCK champion, away, and you're claiming it was all just T1 and ZOFGK and the way Faker plays and the way the academy brought him. Well, in that case, getting back in return a 4-time LCK champion with a mega resume, that should be a good replacement. I mean, Faker can just take him and do everything with him, right? Because even with Zeus, this is why you're in trouble. Even with Zeus, a player I just described brought so much to the game, they only won 1 LCK, didn't make the last 2 MSI finals when the format got more sturdy with larger sample size, failed to make the last LCK final, and barely qualified to Worlds this year, even though, yes, once there, they won Worlds, but they barely made it there. That's with Zeus. So let me ask this question. Here's another hard pill to swallow. If that Porby period last year in summer proved that the other T1 players, these are real things, thousands of T1 stands say, by the way, all over the internet, you can gaslight me and deny it if you want, but it's true. They say that the other T1 players, that proved they are nothing without Faker. He's like the brains and they're just mere minions before more pawns. Then what's the issue with this move going away? Just get another pawn, that's a proven pawn that can win. And then there you go. If they're mindless drones, if they're Faker's sand soldiers, as I've heard them described, by the way, some of the greatest players of all time, Zeus and fucking Kerrier, someone's sand soldiers, then no biggie. Just get a 4-time LCK champion. Well, the best, I'm told it's the best region in the world. Just turn Doran into a sand soldier. There you go. In fact, if anything, won't this further prove Faker's greatness? That he is truly not only the GOAT, but so far beyond everyone else as the GOAT. No one even knows what they're doing. We're all playing checkers and he's playing chess. Well, go ahead, sir. Play some chess then. You've got your pawns. Go and do it, mate. If a player leaving your team, think about this for a second. If a player leaving your team makes you think that your team's worse and the other team's better, spoiler, your team wasn't better than the other team. It's that player was. That's why the whole balance of power shifted from one player going from one team to another team. And spoiler, Hanwha Life was already better than T1 domestically. They just weren't at Worlds when all the pressure came along. I also think this is a fun angle to seed already. Bear in mind now, I actually think it's very unlikely T1 wins any trophies. But it's now way more likely Hanwha Life can win the Worlds. Here's something I'm going to seed already that's going to tilt the fuck out of T1 stance. If Zeus on Hanwha Life Esports wins Worlds, it is going to be glorious to see what it will do to the Faker narratives, because they will collapse. It will be the reverse of the Porby situation. Now it will be the absence of Zeus, you will realise, in this team. Except here's the difference. Porby was a way more inappropriate replacement for Faker than fucking Doran is for Zeus. Like with Doran on paper, if the rest of the team is as good as you guys think, you should still be able to win. You never could have won with Porby. By the way, when he goes to LCK Challenger where he played with Rekkles, they're not even good there, guys. They were never even making the finals or like one of the top teams. So to me, if you go and you see Zeus, and here's the even better part, is his not having Faker. When he doesn't have Faker, and by the way, it's not like he has Chovy or Knight or some monster player, BDD. He has Zika, who's good, but he's still like potentially meta dependent. No one quite knows like how good is he? What's his peak going to be? Will he be the main carrying tick? So if he goes and he wins Worlds with Zika, like, look, I'll give you this. I think the other players are all really good, and I think Viper is unbelievably good. But it's going to be Viper and fucking Zeus that could potentially win you Worlds. They're the ones that can be the absolute best in their role, right? I think that is going to change so many of those narratives. It's not going to retcon them all, because it's not that it was always this case, but it's going to change how people see it. It's going to be a lot harder to build those nonsense narratives that currently they were always going to ride with in T1. So in terms of Zeus joining Hanwha Life. Great move for Hanwha Life. This is basically on paper almost the best move you can make. The only one I think would be better is I do think in theory, in their team, it depends how much you believe in ZK. If you believe in ZK, I actually think they would be better with Keen and he could play a little bit more supportive and utility. But I also think I'm not as big a believer in ZK. He's been good now, I'll give him that. Till he fails, I won't hate on him. But I want Zeus precisely for the reason why I wanted him with Faker. Because he can actually be like a pressure release valve for Faker to not have to carry all the time. And he can help you in the draft. Zeke can also be someone who can get pinched in the draft or somewhat limited based on the meta. So I think it's fantastic. It is an absolute upgrade over Doran, in my opinion. He is the definitive player of the last 2 World Championships, which is enormous for a team like this. He gives them more carry threat from top, which is awesome. It means Zeke doesn't even have to be the best mid or outperform the best mid that he's playing. If you think about it, Zeus, Zika, and Viper, those are really good players from all 3 of the traditional carry roles. There are 0 average or bad players on this team. Peanut and Delight are both contenders for best in the world in their role, depending on what you want out of those players. And you can say that minus Zika, this team potentially has the 4 best players in the other roles. Like, legitimately, Zika might be starting 2025 with the best team in the world based on overall lineup and aggregate ability experience. Also, by the way, spoiler, there are 4 World Championships represented in this squad. Zeus has 2, Zika has 1, and Viper has 1 from EDG, obviously. So to me, this team now, they had dark horse potential to win Worlds before because you have to give it to them because they won LCK. Some people think the best region. I don't. I think the LPL is. But okay, if LCK is the best region and you win it, that infers, removing concepts like pressure that and the meta changing, you can win Worlds. The difference is you were always a dark horse still for me. You still should have put Gen G and BLG ahead of them, in my opinion. And then maybe, depending on how you thought about some of the other LPL teams, maybe you had like a top esports or who else would you? I guess not Weibo, etc. So to me now, sure. There are other good teams, like Gen G's super team could be the best team to ever play. If you look how crazy the firepower is there. BLG, if they're running that lineup back, was a very, very good team with really good team fighting who dominated their region. But I think this team now, Hanwha Life, can win absolutely everything. This is another lineup that has to look at next year and say, maybe this is my time to win that Grand Slam of all the events. It's absolutely now plausible, thanks to this Zeus move. That's what a game changer this shift in power of the top player from T1 to Hanwha Life is. That was one of the few weak roles on Hanwha Life. Now it's potentially one of the strongest roles. It also, and this is a double whammy, simultaneously makes Hanwha Life like potentially a favourite for everything. And I think it removes T1 as a rival. Now I think you will have to battle them, but you should beat them most times now. So another thing I'll just throw out there as well is, it's like Dom's tweet says here. I actually agree. He says, it's a bit weird that people think Zeus made a wrong decision. Spoiler, it's just because they're T1 fans and they want ZOFGK or whatever. He gets to go to a better team. They are now a better team because Zeus joined. And make more money and have less pressure. He won so fucking hard here. I agree with Dom. For Zeus, everything about this move is great. The only things that might not be is maybe he was friends with T1, maybe he was more comfortable being there, maybe he wanted to see what they could do or see if they could repeat or defend their championship. Aside from that, every other factor that goes forwards, like be on the best team you can be on, he's upgraded his team, go and get more money, he's getting more money apparently, have less pressure in terms of just you because you got blamed. There's another thing. I used to think they always blamed in T1. Zeus and Orna got all the shit when they lost. And then what happened was, Faker obviously gets all the praise no matter what, never blamed. Carrier, because he was so innovative and he's got such a cutesy personality, I think people just like and they think of him as like a little brother. And then Gumayushi just comes off as very amiable and mega charismatic, so people kind of forgive him. And it's that whole like Carrier Gumayushi bot lane, which is like the fucking shipping and all the bromance and all that. So everyone used to just blame Zeus when they lost, and then when they won, go, congrats Faker and Carrier and Gumayushi, you are geniuses. So as a result, I actually think there's less pressure on Zeus here. Now look, don't get me wrong, the second he ever loses to T1 or T1 ever outplaces him, he'll get more pressure because every shitty little T1 fan will go in on him like he was the most hateful villain of all time. He's going to get way worse comments than fucking Chovy and Night Dude. Just get ready for that already. But I do think overall, he has a better chance to win. This is better for Zeus' career. He's only won 3 trophies, 4 if you count EWC, with T1. It's obviously not part of the Riot circuit. He can win everything in a way he never could have with T1. Because there's another thing. You know that whole thing? I used to do it too. When T1 hadn't won yet, when they hadn't won Season 13 Worlds, and all they'd won was that one LCK before Gen G powered up, then they kept losing to Gen G every time, all the lineups, and then they lost famously, obviously, in the 2022 final to DRX. That was when they were like losing MSI finals to RNG, they're losing LCK final to Gen G, they're losing the Worlds final to DRX, then they go back to Korea, they lose to the domestic final to Gen G, then they go to MSI and they lose to JDG and BLG. At that point in time, I admit they didn't make the final of that MSI. People, when they had that streak of finals, like LCK final into MSI final, into LCK final, into Worlds final, into Spring final. You lost 4 finals in a row. When that happened, everyone's whole thing was, oh, they're so unlucky. Like the fact that they're in these finals and some of these are close or 5 games means they could have won it all. You don't get to say that anymore. Do you know why you don't get to say anymore that they could have won all that? Because when someone almost wins but loses in most of those cases, then they do win the biggest tournaments. Like you win 2 Worlds, people don't expect you to win because of the summer results, like the playoffs this year and then the summer regular season last year. That meant people didn't expect you to win. So I'm not going to say it's purely lucky, but I will say you had a run of luck. You had to have things go your way in those 2 Worlds. So if you get to have things go your way to win 2 World Championships, you don't then get to go, and I also should have won all these other ones too. Like I also should have won like another MSI and another Worlds and a couple more LCK. It's like, no, them's the breaks. You take the good with the bad. In the same way, by the way, I always used to say this to Counter-Strike players, because pros are really bad for this thinking. I would go, does only bad luck count? Because they would tell me in Counter-Strike, oh, I lost that game because in like the buy round, the guy just had like a deagle instead of a gun and he just headshot me across the map. That's just fluke. But then I would say, yeah, but when you get like a pistol win or some fluke like 1v3 win, you don't then go, well, that's bad luck for the opponent, so I shouldn't have won. You go, hey, of course I should win because I want to win. Then he has a lucky moment. You go, this is unfair. What the hell? That wouldn't happen normally. So you have to accept it all. That's the nature of how it works. And spoiler, yes, the greater the player you are, the more luck you get. I would say that's actually why T1 didn't win everything. I think the T1 actually was the best lineup ever. They could have won almost every single one of these tournaments. Or at least, like, I don't know, 2/3 of them or something. I don't expect him to win literally every single one. So I think he's got way less pressure. Like, I told you, I felt like he was just the lightning rod for all the criticism. Look, Owner would be just because he's the bloody jungler, isn't he? So let's get into some of this information. What I'm going to do is, this is one of the reasons I took a day or 2 to make this video, because there's so much information, there's so many different sources, and who knows how viable they all are. What we need to do initially is just get a sense of what has been said, and then I can break it down. So I'll do a mixture of like reading between the lines on these PR things. But I've got to say, already the thing that initially is quite jarring is all these things are written from such an insanely biased perspective, like completely myopic, where essentially there is no universe where they write these articles that T1 is ever to blame for anything, ever mishandled anything, is ever the case that they did something scummy, or they're doing something shady, or they lied, or they might not be telling. It's never the case. These articles or these leaks are written like they were from T1 Ultras or people inside fucking T1. They are fucking bonkers. So let's go look at some of them, right? Rich's Wrath took this post, which he doesn't necessarily even agree with. It's just it was removed from Reddit, so you can't read it on Reddit anymore. And it says here, this is a summary of what people claim happened. I'll read out all the summaries, and as we go, I'll also break down some of it. We'll keep returning back. We'll just go where we go. It says, Zeus and Keen are managed by 2 different agencies, but only on paper. Same route/implied collusion. So, interesting detail there. That already infers that it's not really 2 different agencies. It's more like the names are 2 different agencies, but it's the same person or people who run the agencies. Therefore, in theory, it's still like a conflict of interest, because in this case, you not only represent 2 players in the same position, but they're actually the 2 players potentially competing for this spot. And so you could do something, which is what's inferred. Like, you could use one of them to make it seem like the team has the choice of whichever one. Then you could actually use that to negotiate a better deal for the first one, Keen in this case. Although, did you even do that? Who knows? That's actually one of the details we'll get into. It's like, why would they screw Keen if that's what people claim they're doing? Just to fuck to Zeus or whatever. But in this case, then when Zeus is the only one available, now you can ask for more, or you can take him elsewhere for a bigger deal. So anyway, the point is, by the way, that idea that like rivals could be represented by the same agent. There's a lot of agents right now in Europe and America, by the way, when they read that and everyone goes, this is unacceptable, Riot should do something. They're fucking Pepe sweating, mate, because that is like almost standard in Western League of Legends. I've always thought, by the way, not only on that global contract database should it list like your contract details, I think it should list the agency is represented by. And you guys would very quickly, the veil would drop away and you would see some outrageous off-season negotiations where literally one agent who doesn't even pretend through multiple agencies, through one agency represents 2 or 3 people all competing for one spot. And I can tell you behind the scenes, some of those agents have been the ones themselves who decided which player went to that team, not the team or the players. They just decided based on things like this, like what other deal could I get, or what I could do with this guy, or who do I like more, who do I think has better long-term earning potential. They just decided it based on their interests, not even the players in question. That is something that needs to be cleaned up in theory in esports anyway, but it won't be. And so now people are just learning, because they didn't know it was a problem, that it's a massive problem in Asia. Oh, it's outrageous. I mean, one of the most famous things in Korean esports is the idea that like people's family members sometimes represent as an agent without any training as an agent. And they'll sometimes, by the way, be trying to like secretly sell like their cousin to some like fucking ERL level team in Europe, whereas that guy didn't even know he was going to leave Korea. And they're doing it sometimes because sometimes their deal is they get a big like signing bonus or percentage of the contract up front. So again, there's all sorts of shady shit, not just in Korea, but around the world. So I don't dispute that there could be some shady shit going on. My point is going to be, is it even illegal? And since you have to, you're not children. T1 didn't discover agents can be shady today. They already knew, and they've dealt with these agents in the past, like these types of agents. So then we go to this part. T1 had a verbal agreement to sign Zeus, but the agency bluffed and asked T1 for a ridiculously high dollars to buy time. Right, first things first there. Let's just go quickly and break this down, but we'll get to some of it later as well. When it says T1 had a verbal agreement to sign Zeus, so fucking what? Now, if you were actually, by the way, in countries like Germany, it's possible a verbal agreement, or especially something like, if they meet verbally, like, you know, over fucking Discord or in-game league chat or in an email, that can actually, in countries like Germany, sometimes be used as a binding contract. And you can say that this means this person intended to work, and you can actually enforce that even if they don't have a contract signed. With that said, that's Germany. I have no idea how Korea works. And no one's going to court to test these contracts anyway, as you saw from some of those massive cases in the LEC the last few years where people just sit at home collecting half the salary or whatever, rather than battling either in court to get it all or being battled with in court to try and see if they can remove them or whatever. Like, so as a result, that's not even that crazy. But spoiler, a verbal agreement, not worth the paper it's written on, mate. That would be the joke, wouldn't it? Because a verbal agreement's nothing. What it means is, in your mind, he's agreed he wants to join. But that still means we have to make the finances work. That's the entire stumbling block. It's not like, right, well, he wants to join and I want him to join. So basically, deal's done. Well, what? It never happened? No. That's just like, right, at least we all agree, we're aligned with, we want this to happen. It's not just only if the deal's dope, I'll join. But then you've got to get all the, they make it sound like not a big deal. Like that thing of, and he asked T1 for a ridiculously high amount of money to buy time. By the way, why are you not allowed to buy time as an agent? An agent's primary responsibility is to take care of the business interests of their client, which isn't T1. Their client is Zeus. They are only obliged to do that. So if actually telling T1, I want loads of money, but stall, helps them get a better deal for Zeus, looks like it did, then that is the right move for them. It's not the right move for T1, but spoiler, they don't represent T1. In fact, you know what's going to blow your mind? T1 can have their own lawyers and agents and their own people doing their deal. So this is actually nonsense already, this notion that like, and then you know, I was trying to like buy, why are you not allowed to buy time? It's because it's going to come later to the idea that allowed T1 to think they were still getting the player, then at the end get screwed to get the last seat in musical chairs and everyone's just raging. Well, guess what? That's called a skill issue. You misplayed your hand, T1. You fucked up. Oh, but I already signed all the other players and we want this guy. Then you fucked up. You should have gotten the biggest, most important part first, then signed the complementary pieces, bozo. You don't go, oh, what? There's no engine available for my car, but I've already got like all these amazing wheels and axle and steering system. Well, it's not going to help you, is it? I'd have got the engine first, idiot, before wasting all my fucking money on that and ended up with some like shitter engine instead. That means the car now can't function no matter how good all those other things are. Then it goes, so T1 asked this agency to let them know what their intentions are before Keen re-signs, so T1 can grab him if they can't get Zeus. Why would this agency, even by the way, no, I guess they have to represent Keen to know what their situation is. But here's the obvious question. Why would this agency be obliged to tell, in other words, basically, while you're playing poker, part of the game of doing a negotiation is also withholding certain leverage and cards and information and playing it like, oh, maybe I would join if you went to this amount to see if you can push them to that amount. Oh, we'd like to join, but we don't like these terms. Someone else is offering another term. By the way, sometimes even lie about that. I wouldn't. I think being dishonest is wrong, but everyone else is fine with it as long as it's not illegal, right? That's what I've learned about the world and all you people in esports who pretend you care about fairness and honesty. So why would the agency be obliged to let T1 know, like, look, we probably are going to let him sign? That's not how deals work. Even if we say he wants to sign, until we get the terms we think are acceptable, I didn't say the terms we want, the terms we think are acceptable, then the deal isn't done. And so the idea that while we're doing this, we're supposed to tell you, while we negotiate with you hard to get better terms, like longer years, more money, we're supposed to tell you whether or not Keane's available as a backup option or whether he's going to sign with someone else. Why would I ever be obliged to do that? Especially now your logic's going to be, yeah, but then I might offer Keane. No, we're trying to get Zeus' best deal here. If you meet Zeus' terms, this is the one thing no one talks about here. It's implied to me that they didn't just ask for something outrageous. It's implied to me if T1 had met even the first couple of demands, Zeus would already have signed, even potentially before this deadline. There would have been no problem. But T1 didn't want to do any of those terms, the more money or the longer contract, as far as I can tell, but we'll get into that later. And so instead, they thought, but don't worry though, if we don't get Zeus, we'll just get Keane. It's like, well, that doesn't work if they also represent Keane, dum-dum. And in this particular case, if they know it makes you desperate, maybe they'll have Keane re-sign. Maybe he also wants to be on a better team, by the way, like Gen G. And then we can then ask for even more because we've got even more leverage for Zeus. And then if you don't give us it, we'll get that leverage from Hanwha Life. Sounds like it sounds like these agents, assuming they didn't do anything illegal, masterfully played their cards. They actually got more for Zeus. Like in this world, think about it the other way around. Everyone going, oh, but they screwed Keane. No, because if they're representing both, the question is, how did they do on aggregate for both clients? Right, Keane's in a better team. Gen G might be in there for less money. I don't know if he had to take a break to fit in a team that's got Ruler now. But Zeus got a better deal. If they do it the other way around, if they go, right, well, Zeus isn't going to join, but he's going to go to Hanwha. Oh, by the way, here's time to sign Keane. They sign Keane. Now Hanwha knows that Keane's signed with T1. So now Hanwha doesn't have to offer Zeus as much. So Zeus gets less. So maybe Keane gets a little bit more, but probably not that much because it doesn't sound like T1 wanted to spend loads. And now Zeus doesn't get that much either when he goes to Hanwha, but that's just better for T1. Can you see why the agents of Keane and Zeus wouldn't do something that's only better for T1? They're not T1's agents. Like I'm going to be doing this angle a lot, by the way, because it's framing that people keep missing, and they're intentionally implying that it's illogical or morally wrong for them to represent their people's best interests. Spoiler, as you'll see in this whole thing, T1 only ever represent their own interests, and mega aggressively and cynically, quite frankly. Then it goes, but this agency ghosted T1 until after Keane re-signed to Gen G. Why is this agency obliged to talk to T1 before Keane signs with Gen G? Can someone explain that to me, please? For all you know behind the scenes, maybe Keane said, look, I don't particularly want to go to T1. If they give like a massive offer and they definitely not get Zeus, maybe I'll go. But other than that, look, I'd rather get more money from Gen G, but I like Gen G. Like, can I just stay here? We don't know that. Again, the framing that also drives me crazy about this particular topic is it's always framed as though every one of these players desperately wants to be in T1 at any costs with any terms to their contract, and that it's better for all of them to be in T1 just because checks notes, the people writing this, I would speculate, and the people commenting are T1 fans. So it's better for you as a T1 fan. It's not better for those players at all, or potentially even their agents, as far as I can tell. So then, the idea I'm not allowed to ghost you, it's your mate. The second Zeus' contract ends, it was ended by the way, he's not under contract. Second his contract ends, I don't have to ever talk to you as an agency. I can now just talk, by the way, to that player, I'm his agent in this case, and any team can come and talk to him. And even if I talk to you initially, and you send me a reply email, I don't have to send you an email. What have I done wrong there? You might claim if you think that my offer would be better for your player, that like I screwed him because I didn't let him see a great offer. Spoiler, there's another thing. I saw that being commented many times where they were like, and maybe they didn't even tell Keane there was a T1 offer. If that's an issue, then go ahead and I would speculate, put every single LCK team in prison by that logic. If you think that should be illegal, put them all in prison. Because the amount of times I've heard, I mean, Western teams do this as well during the season when you're under contract, the amount of times I've heard that another team approached for like a player and the org didn't tell the player because they didn't want to sell him to that team, or that's like a rival team. I've had that happen loads, especially in the Asian regions where they feel like they own the player because I made you and it was all just because of me and all that. I feel like that's another thing that's not rare, by the way, at all. Then it goes, when negotiations began again on November 19th, right? Pause. Always remember, The end of his contract was the 18th of November. So what you mean is when negotiations began again, when he was now no longer under contract. In other words, now that he's no longer under contract, no one ever has to contact T1 about this deal. Now the whole deal can be done between Zeus, his agents, and any other team in the world. He could be talking to Mad Lions, BDS, and fucking some team, Lion Gaming from LTA. It doesn't matter. He never has to talk to T1 ever again. None of them ever do because he's now no longer under contract. He's a free agent. And spoiler, the free part is about your movement. You are free to do as you please. You can go wherever you like. You are no longer held back to talk. Now, every day before the 19th, he was under contract to T1 and you actually had to ask T1's permission to talk to him, which means the whole time T1 could have been talking with no one else able to talk to him. Planning, asking what he wants, going over the minutiae of this. By the way, it isn't like this is the day after Worlds. He's had some time since he won Worlds. You could have been using that whole time to have this long back and forth. Instead, you signed all the others, and at the end, because you had like a verbal agreement, you fucked up this one and didn't get the most important piece. That's called a misplay from the T1 org. Then it says, but then this agency told T1 that Hanwha Life offered more. Not even 400k more, and ghosted T1. Now, I've seen this written elsewhere, and this is where I know this is a T1 fan or someone who's actually unhinged writing this fucking sentence out. Because when they say that, 400k, the actual figure I believe people quoted in Korean was 500 million Korean won. Now, obviously, their currency is insane compared to like Western ones. So if you don't know, 500 million Korean won is something like $327,000. Right? They put 400k. So let's just say 400k to be rough, because who knows what the total amount was. The idea that a contract, remember, T1 was initially trying to give this guy a 1-and-1, where after 1 year, they'd have the option to not pick it up for the next year, and he'd have 1 year of contract. So if I'm getting offered a Hanwha Life offer, that is almost $400,000 more, even if it's for 2 or 3 more years, that sounds like a great deal for Zeus. He can't know where he'll be in the future. He will have different negotiating power and leverage in the future, depending on how his career goes. Right now is the absolute zenith of when he can have his leverage. He's just won Worlds back-to-back. I think he was one of the most important players to do so. And because you've already signed the others, he's a massive piece to sign. He should be getting mega bucks. So yeah, it's only 400k more. You can only say that if you're a fucking idiot. If you think only 400k, that's not a big deal, 400k. Yeah, it is a big deal when it's 400k the wrong way, pal. It's not like it's the other way around. Like, hey, T1 only offered him 400k more. You'd be like, T1 offered him 400,000 more and he still didn't join. What an idiot. He should have gone where the money was. But now he has to join T1 for less money after Checkshot's winning the biggest prize in league. And you yourself agree, being the central part, because we've signed the others, around a ZOFGK branded thing that's going to be the future of T1 going forward. Sounds like you shouldn't wait till the end to lowball the guy. Even if he said verbally he'll agree. Spoiler, that verbally isn't everything, though, as a negotiation would just be people saying they're going to join. You wait till the fucking actual agents get involved and hammer out all the details, don't they? The devil is in the details. And it goes, and ghosted T1. By the way, the second someone ghosts you, maybe grow the fuck up and just contact other players immediately. The second Zeus ghosts me, if I'm T1, I would do what T1 appropriately would do. I would act like I'm getting played. I would immediately contact Keen the second I'm being played. Now, yeah, they're going to ghost you again. Well, the second they ghost me, I know I fucked up. Now I'm not getting anyone. And by the way, why are you leaving it till the end? It's for one agent. You didn't know before you got to the last player that this one agent represented both of the 2 players, the only 2 you want and the only 2 left. Then it sounds like you're fucking incompetent, people who work at T1. You've had your players under contract all this time. You never did that. You wait till the end. You wait till they're not even in contract. And then you allowed your whole fate to be decided by whether one agent played God with which of the 2 players you got. And then you got, spoiler, neither. You are a fucking clown. That you should be fired from your job, in my opinion. You don't know what you're doing. You don't even know basic reconnaissance. And then it says, I love this part. This is just written by a fan. After being mental boomed, who the fuck is right? This isn't like journalism. Like, and then of course the team, they felt sad and got mentally boomed. Like, what are you talking? This is the way this is the way like someone that jokingly talks on a core stream. After being mental boomed, right? Professionals doing business deals are getting mental boomed by not getting their way. They're not fucking little kids who didn't get the flavour of ice cream they want, you moron. By these series of actions, T1 quickly contacted Doran's agency and signed him. Oh, weird how T1 can suddenly quickly pivot when they know what the lay of the land is and do a move that appropriately helps them and means they don't get left with absolutely nothing. Fucking hell, imagine if you'd actually gotten ahead of the problem beforehand, dum-dum. Then it says here, the next part, by the way, may as well just be like Narnia. We're just off in fantasy land, like, oh, they wanted this, and this is what they thought should happen, and then they said this, and it's all nonsense. Get ready. T1 always wanted to retain ZOFGK. Clearly not true, by the way. Even their own messaging implies it's because they've won Worlds and the fan response that now they've decided ZOFGK is a thing, not just it's Faker plus a bunch of rookies and we can put anyone around him. Now they've decided suddenly, by the way, why let all the contracts end except Faker if you always wanted these players? What you do is what G2 does. You never let a contract end because then the player as a free agent can leave and he can screw you in the game of musical chairs, so you get left with nothing. You don't even get a better or equivalent player. So if you actually always wanted these players, you do what G2 did, which is last year after they won Worlds, you wouldn't just re-sign Zeus, you'd sign them all. Or how about this year when you win EWC, you'd say, hey, I actually commit to this roster, I believe in it, and I do want it to be the legacy after Faker, so I'll sign all of you now for 2 or 3 year contracts. Then it's my decision if you play in second or third year, or I can sell you if I want to for value at that point in time. Instead, you wait till literally the off season when this player, the last player, was literally a free agent, and then you go, but I always wanted him. Your actions betray that you didn't. And you certainly did not attempt to. Then this party goes to keep the ZOFGK branding. By the way, why are we all retconning and pretending that was always a thing? I never even heard of this ZOFGK thing. It might have been thinking of the Korean scene, I don't know. Until, I'm not even joking, I think it was, wasn't it like between EWC and Worlds? I might even have been just coming into Worlds. I heard about that suddenly being spammed everywhere by everyone, as though it was always about all 5 players. Before that, it was just all about Faker, by the way. It was just about Faker's narratives. Then it goes, to keep the ZOFGK branding, they were ready to give the players whatever they wanted, plus multi-year contracts. You will see later, obviously these are all different sources, that just isn't true. Because if they gave them whatever they wanted and multi-year contracts, then there wouldn't have been an issue. That's what they're also pretending. They're pretending, even though they just admitted earlier on that Hanwha Life was offering 400,000 more, or not even 400,000 more. Well, wait, which is it? Are you giving me whatever I want? I want this much money. Oh, I won't give you that. I'll give you 400,000 less. Hey, what the hell, man? I offered you everything you wanted. That's just disingenuous or dishonest. Oh, and multi-year contracts. What they mean by that is more than... When I say to you, the minimum I want is a 2-year contract, and you go, I'll give you a 1+1. All you've done is give me a 1-year contract because the option is yours for the second year. So you haven't given me a multi-year contract. That's literally not true. Now later, maybe you then go to, maybe I give you 2, but now I'm like, well, I want 3+1 now because I have more leverage elsewhere. And maybe Hanwha Life's going to offer me a 3+1. By the way, am I not allowed to get security for my career either? Am I not allowed to decide to sign for 3 or 4 years? I have to just keep playing your game where every year you get to go, you want me Worlds, literally the biggest prize ever this time, but I don't know if you're going to do it next year. So I want the choice for it's me that can bench you or retain you or choose a different player. Yeah, I get why the org, it totally makes sense why the org could want all the leverage in the say. They didn't have the leverage here. That's where they fucked up. They thought, we're T1, we decide the terms of your contract. Well, you didn't, did you, dickhead? Because he chose to go with Hanwha Life. So it's almost like you should have learned your lesson that in that scenario, he was the A side of the deal because you'd already paid yourself in a corner with all the other signings and you needed him, especially for this branding, you dumb fuck, that you gave him infinite leverage. And you thought you were still the A side and you could demand terms and he could never sign, even as a free agent with someone else, until you're finished with negotiating. You aren't the A side. You don't get to decide that. You're the B side of the card, pal. He's Floyd Mayweather. You're just whoever's fighting Floyd Mayweather. He gets to say how this thing goes. Then you go to this. Zeus's agent walked a fine line. Whoa. Already, that gives away everything. What you would actually say if what they did was super fucked up and clearly illegal and just morally wrong, is you'd go, what he did was wrong. But he walked a fine line between legal and illegal. That nearly always just means what he did was legal, but I think it was wrong. So maybe it sort of should be illegal, even though it isn't. Otherwise, why put that he walked a fine... What line? You mean he walked the line of what's legal? Because if he walked the line of what's legal, then there's no problem. Don't worry about it. But get ready. This is clearly written by a fan. He walked a fine line between legal and illegal to fuck T1 over. Right, so the whole thing now wasn't about getting the best deal for Zeus or Keen or whatever they wanted or whatever they themselves even instructed their agents. Notice this is all treated like the agent decided everything. Not that these players are actually adult humans who have agency of their own and are telling the agent who I want to do and which deal I accept. Why are we just assuming that? Why are we treating all these people like Zeus, like they're children and they had no say in it at all? It's actually fucking disgraceful. Then it goes... So they only did it to fuck T1 for no reason. We still never... Are they just the biggest season fucking 3 and 5 KT fans of all time, these agents? And they're like, my only goal is to fuck T1. Oh, well, how come within your goal you fucked T1, but then you also somehow kept Keen on the best team he could be on, and then got Zeus to a better team with a better, longer contract and more money? It sounds like that. Even though that your only goal was to fuck T1, you've done a really good job for checking out your clients. So already, what an insanely biased framing. The only goal was to fuck T1. Everyone's just jealous and wants to fuck T1. Could you be more of a stan? So all of T1 is mental boomed right now, right? We're acting like, for real, Zeus, like, just did the fucking Horus heresy in Warhammer or something. He chose, as a free agent, to go to a better team to potentially win more. But no, that's mental booming everyone now. Yeah, because how T1 fucking handled it. Do you want to know, if your owner and Gumayushi and those people, if you want to get mad at someone, get mad at fucking T1, you idiot. They're the ones who sold you a false bill of goods, told you something was going to happen, lowballed you, and then after all that went, sorry, we didn't get him, but here's Thorin. Try and win worlds now. I'd be mad at you, not fucking Zeus, mate. How can I be mad at him doing better for himself in his career? Especially when T1, after he's just done everything for you, won't give him an enormous deal. And by the way, fucking half-washed faker is making millions and millions and millions of dollars for some godlike contract in mid lane. But I'm actually the best player right now and I can't get a good contract for market value. Go fuck yourself. I've just won worlds. Then it goes, T1 will dig to find whatever they can to serve them papers. Why do you need to dig, bruh? Shouldn't you've already got some illegal behaviour that you've already got documented? Because that's the problem with your scenario. What that sounds like is this. I'm mad that you actually legally played me within the bounds of what is acceptable, and I probably can't sue you. So you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to hire a bunch of PIs. I'm just going to try and dig up a bunch of shit and just make it seem like you've done some other fucked up shit. Why would you need to dig? Supposing they've already done the fucked up thing. What you mean is what they did isn't fucked up enough for you to serve them legal papers. Maybe shut the fuck up, whine, and then you little pussy. Or then it goes, it's the way this is written, like it's actually written by the T1 guy himself, just writing in his diary from the third person. It goes, T1 is enraged. Well, I don't know, have a fucking coke and shut the fuck up. Who cares? T1 is enraged and is in vengeance mode. Yeah, here's the thing. How about instead of getting revenge, just pay great players what they're worth in the market, you fucking wanker. Instead of treating them like they're your indentured servant and they should be grateful to play for you when they could go and have a better life elsewhere and get all the things they want. They're in vengeance mode. Get ready for it. This makes T1 sound like massive douchebags. They will contact TV stations, find whatever they can to sue these guys. No. Why would you find whatever you can? Just use all the things they've done to you. Why would you go and find stuff? Also, we're going to contact TV stations. All right, the moral arbiter of truth, TV stations. So what you're telling me is a giant company, SK Telecom, who was one of the fucking giant, like, they're part of like chaeballs of the giant megacorps in Korea, who has insane like spending and advertising buys. They're going to use their media influence to potentially smear or just say shitty things about these guys. But that's supposed to be like righteous, like fucking indignation and like justified revenge. It just sounds like petty reprisals because you just fucking lost in the game of negotiation. Then it goes, T1 intended to brand around ZOFGK to be the successor to Faker. Then sign Zeus first, you fucking idiot. Otherwise you have nothing. You yourself are admitting it was more important to us than it was to Zeus. He's not about ZOFGK branding, it's your org. So if it's more important to you, you don't get to set all the terms, do you? It sounds like you must actually do what he wants, because that's very important that you do this whole plan of branding, because I get it. That's the part people are missing, is once you don't have Zeus, now you wouldn't have done the other deals, would you? Now you might have tried to sign some now maybe you went for Ruler, maybe you went for some fucking insane jungler that was available, but no, you fucked it up because you thought you made Exodia, and at the end, the last card wasn't the main one in Exodia, it was just some fucking okay or above average card, but not the last Exodia piece, was it, you idiot? So it doesn't activate Exodia at that point in time. I don't even know how Yu-Gi-Oh works, so I might be wrong on that one. Who fucking knows? I know more about Yu-Gi-Oh than T1 does about negotiating with Zeus, though, apparently. Then it says, T1 had a verbal agreement. They can say that a million times, it will never mean anything. Spoiler, I'm going to talk to you about this later, but Rekkles had a verbal agreement with Fnatic in the off-season of 2020, it said, to join their team. They built part of the team, then he left anyway for G2. Okay? So does Fnatic fucking sue G2? Do they sue Rekkles? Do his agents get like fucking reprisals and TV? No, it's just they just played themselves by believing a verbal agreement, even though all that is just like, I intend to do something, but I'm not legally required to. Every company knows what the law is. They're not all naive children like the people reading these. Then it goes, T1 lost their ZOFGK brand. Their merch cancelled, have nothing left to lose, so they're on a bloodthirsty crusade against Zeus's agency. By the way, if you just assume before the contracts are signed that the player's staying and you make merch and then try and sell it to your fans, you're also an incompetent idiot. And I would say, I don't know if you deserve that, but I'll tell you what, it's kind of karmic that you do get that then and get all the refunds, right? Sounds like you've actually... So wait a minute, let me just think of this one. This is going to blow your mind here. How much money did you lose from the merch getting cancelled? Because I'm going to make you laugh right now. If it's anywhere close to 400k, maybe you should have just given Zeus that money, eh? What do you mean? Wait a minute, let me just go back in time a second. So you're telling me Zeus just won you worlds, that's going to get you world skins that are worth loads of money. And from that, you're probably going to get more sponsorships because you just two-time worlds winners with the original lineup. And you're going to brand the original lineup and sell some merch around that as well. And your whole plan is a campaign around this being the inheritor, like that lineup, the inheritor faker, not just faker. It sounds like you should probably give that person a massive deal because you're making extra money from the skins, extra money from the sponsors, and in this particular case, the whole thing's set up extra money from merch around the idea it's got to be these 5. Then why are you lowballing people? We'll find out later. Why are you lowballing people like fucking Order? Why are you telling Zeus he can't have the deal? This is fucking gross. You want to make loads while still paying him less than he's worth. Well, then why does he have to stay? But they make it sound like it's like Zeus should feel bad that this merch is cancelled. That had nothing to do with him. He never signed a contract. He never had any written intention to play with these people. Overheard T1 CEO. Wait, anytime that... the person writing this overheard what, like a top exec in T1 said. It's just him or his mate or someone or a journalist he knows. This is nonsense, bro. What is this shite? Overheard T1 COO shout. I saw Kanye at 7-Eleven. He was just screaming something about fucking Diddy. Like, give me a break. Shout. He swears on his name he will never forgive them. Who gives a fuck, mate? What is this? Like, is this some fucking visual novel? We're in like a harem fucking schoolgirl simulator. Like, I'll never forgive you, Lucy, for what you did stealing Billy from me. Who cares? Who gives a fuck? What they mean is, well, never deal with those incidents again. Well, if that's true, then he's now going to doubly fuck T1. Because what if in the future, Keen and Zeus are the best possible players, and 3 years down the line, it would make sense for you to sign them to your team. But then you're like, they represented by the agent, then I'm just going to sign Doran and Doran 2.0 only. I'll cut off my own nose to spite my face. Yeah, it's only you that you're fucking over there, you idiot. I'll never forgive you. It's business, you fucking loser. Get your emotions out of it. Why are you in your feelings so much? It's fucking business. By the way, you work for the team. By the way, that's cut and benched a million fucking people in massive moments. You didn't give a fuck about their feelings. But also, you work as part of a giant cheerball. You don't get to, a mom and pop store. You don't get to have feelings. You guys are being ruthless scumbags to people all the time. Spoiler, that wouldn't be the first time those cheerballs have paid people below their market value and expected them to do extra work and stay at jobs where they have the option to go elsewhere. That's kind of like the Korean thing I've heard. But enough about that. What would I know? I only had literally partners of mine who worked in Korea and told me these things. Well, hey, what do you know? Then it goes... And if that was really all they did, why are we saying that? We've tried to imply in all these posts, by the way, that they've done some really heinous shit. But at the end, and if that was all they really did, what, just did a deal and ghosted you and then had him sign somewhere else and then you couldn't get... It's not that you got nothing, you just didn't get the player you wanted. Okay. T1 wouldn't be on this crusade. Funny, when I jokingly said it was a crusade against TSM, people kept saying it's racist and right-wing and it's obviously like hateful and he's trying to say fucked up things about religion there. But when T1 uses a crusade, it's just a fucking metaphor again. Weird how that works. There's something even more fucked. Well, it's been days now, so that'll come out very soon, right? The really fucked thing that they've done. Because we've tried to present all this as fucked. But as you yourself had to admit a couple of times, it's not really, is it? It's just, you just didn't like the way it turned out. Let's read some of the other ones just to get a sense of all the info. So what happened here was, there was this post that got removed, high-ranking officials, and if we go down to here, this guy summarised some of it. So this is pretty interesting, because it's already, you're going to see how some of these reports completely contradict each other, so they both can't be true. So this guy goes, adding a comment, because it's a little hard to understand what's being said in these comments. Side note, I'm a Korean-American T1 fan that has been browsing FM Korea, one of the main sites over there, this morning. First of all, we need to hear from both sides. This guy actually seems fairly reasonable. And there is a lot of speculation, so take things with a grain of salt. The opposite of what everyone did, of course. However, the general sentiment is that Zeus's agent is a piece of shit. I mean, that's a fucking outrageous thing to say, but okay. I would just say shady. A piece of shit seems really unprofessional, outrageous for like this sort of negotiation. And ruining Zeus's image. He's just signed him to a better team, but okay. Because he didn't sign with T1, that's ruined his image. They mean because of the behaviour and what he's doing. as well, so hopefully they drop a real statement soon. To summarise, get ready. Zeus wanted a long-term deal. Pause. I was just told in that last thing that they offered these players what they wanted, big contracts and multi-year. But then he goes, yeah, I want a long-term deal. Well, then what was the issue? By the way, what would the issue? This is also the most whack thing. T1 are morons for not wanting Zeus for 3 or 4 years. That's actually the perfect contract length for where he is in his career and what he does for your team. You morons. And you can sell him to someone else. Like, he's not going to actually be like the 50th best top laner in 2 years. So you could probably sell him like KT in 2 years and he can still be good. You could sell him like Hanwha Life sold Doran now. But okay, Zeus wanted a long-term deal. Totally reasonable to ask for, by the way. I saw some people in the comments asking why he would want this. Well, I mean, they must just be mentally ill too. You should just want to play for 1 year, and then if you don't do well enough and we don't win worlds, we just chuck you on the scrap heap and go back to building around Faker because you are just a scryer who must be a psyker or whatever, who must be sacrificed to the god emperor Faker to keep his golden throne working so he can do world wins once a year. Like, give me a fucking break. What about what Zeus wants? So then he goes asking why he would want this, and it's because he's exempt from military service, so having a guaranteed long-term contract on a top team with a competitive salary in his prime is good. Right, this guy gets it. This guy actually gets it. T1 offered a 3+1, 3 years plus 1 year option depending on performance and negotiations, with a small, we don't have details on numbers, see how they all contradict each other, but we'll get to that, increase in salary. Right, get ready. So this one, it claims the issue was the salary. You're going to see in the other ones, they claim it was the year length. So they go, Zeus's agent, by the way, every time it says Zeus's agent, you actually should just assume Zeus says, because Zeus's agent's job is to represent him. But they're going to purposely always write agent and pretend Zeus is a 12-year-old kid bound, gagged, and locked in a closet until this deal was done. And then he was freed. And his agents go, we've signed into this team. He goes, what the hell? I thought I was in ZOFGK. I'm in fucking Hanwha now. Just nonsense, of course. But okay. They go, because the salary did not meet their expectations. By the way, that's totally reasonable. Logically, Zeus should be the highest paid top laner in the world, in my opinion, especially because his team needs him even more than all the other top laners. The only other one that would have been viable was Keen, and even then, I don't think Keen wanted to go there, and I actually think they prefer Zeus over Keen. So the idea he asks for like high salary, by the way, I don't think he's even the highest paid top laner in the world, so why would that be unreasonable to ask for more salary? T1 asked to meet today. Whoa. I'm going to pause right there because this is one thing that's driving me crazy. How are we making, right? When it says this line here, T1 offered 3+1. The agent said they want more salary. T1 asked to meet today. Why are we meeting? We're already doing deals, right? Well, we're going to have to meet eventually to sign the contract, probably, right? But why now do we have to meet suddenly? Here's a detail no one's thought about in this story. And I think I know what's going on here. I know why, in my opinion, the agents didn't have the meeting with the COO of T1, and Zeus especially didn't have a meeting with them. Because what this actually sounds like to me is this. Before this, you're just doing a deal. It's just a business deal. Hey, you want this terms? If so, like, send over the contract, we can sign it. Then, the deal isn't going your way, crucially, for T1. You've made an offer for a long deal, it's claimed, but not much salary. They want more salary. Presumably, you don't want to pay, otherwise you just say, yes, okay, I'll pay the salary. Now send the contract over and we'll sign it. Instead, you go, hey, I'd like to meet in person. Here's what I think you're doing. You then go and get a high-up person in your org, COO in this case. That sounds to me like you're trying to get a very respected, important person above Zeus and the general agents in the esports hierarchy, and you're going to try by meeting in person to coerce Zeus and his agents to do the deal you want anyway, but not the deal they've asked for. What you're going to do is you're going to meet with him and say, hey, Zeus, we've enjoyed a lot how you worked in T1 and we've always thought of you as one of the family and it would be an awful shame for your legacy to do. I think that's what you were going to go and do. I think this is just like when I said how mega inappropriate it was, where it's alleged that in the Danny Evil Geniuses case, he said, I don't want to play in the playoffs at all. And then supposedly, Nicole LaPointe Jameson, the CEO of the company he worked for, his boss, his ultimate boss, took him into a room. They had a conversation and suddenly Danny came out like, Danny's going to play now. That just sounds like you coerced someone. Now, again, I'm not going to treat you like you're all 15-year-old kids. You are an adult. But if I'm Zeus, maybe or maybe my agents say this to me, maybe I actually say I don't want to meet with them. They're going to put way more pressure on me. I actually think I would like to be in Hanwha unless I get the right deal. And I think I'll get emotionally affected. And this will make me biased, or it'll potentially affect how I can make the decision. I don't want to be like pressured or coerced. Or maybe the agent even tells him, this is a mistake. Don't meet with them. Let me just handle this negotiation. We'll see if we can get you what you want. But if you meet with them, they're going to tell you the sob story. They're going to pull at your heartstrings. They're going to get to you. That's totally fine. You're not obliged to meet. And spoiler, this implies T1 wasn't going to meet if they got the deal they wanted. So already this whole thing of like, and they wouldn't even meet them. We're now pretending that's the only way the deal could be done. But we were already trying to make the deal before we asked to meet with them. That's very telling. Get ready for some of this info because it's mental. Agents said no because they wanted to test the waters and see what Zeus's market value was. Pause there, because this is a part that is completely lost on everyone. They're saying no because they want the market to open and them to legally be allowed to talk to other teams without asking T1's permission. So until the market opens, they can't legally talk and get an offer from Hanwha or from Gen G or from whatever team in the world. Some LPL team, by the way, could have been in the negotiation to drive the price up. So that's not sinister. That's also, bearing in mind, T1 isn't giving you the deal you want, a totally appropriate, I would even say advisable thing to do. I think they even implied last year Zeus thought about testing the market, but he just decided to sign the extra 1-year contract because they won Worlds. Then it goes, this is interesting already, clock hits 9 a.m. when offers can be made, and Hanwha Life swoops in. The way this is phrased is mental. They swoop in and offer 4 to 5 million, presumably one, so that's a... no, it must be $1 million there. Okay, $4 to $5 million for a 2-year contract. Okay. Many are speculating in this range. 2-year contract, $4 to $5 million, right? The reason he wrote swooped in there is to make it sound sinister. Like, it sounds like T1's waiting politely for their chance to negotiate again. And then, oh, you do that, check, I move my queen. Like some shit like that. And then Hanwha Life just rushes in like, I'll take him for whatever you want. No, what happened is Hanwha Life just came and made a much better offer, and as a result, it was accepted by Zeus's agent. Nothing sinister about that. Once you get a really great offer, and the other side hasn't yet ever confirmed they'll even meet your offer, and in fact, they're not even continuing to negotiate normally. They're now sending people to harass you in person. I think it's totally fine that you just say, we signed that deal, and we chose not to meet with you again. We don't have to. It's not required. When you go to a shop, and you're looking around, and you see an item, and you're like, I don't mind this, right? And you think... And the sales agent comes over and he goes, hey, could I help you with anything? And you go, no, I'm just looking, but I might come back for it later. And then sometimes you don't go back to that store and buy it because you went to another store and you found something better that you prefer. So you don't go back to the other store and go, look, I'm actually not going to have that item there. It's fair enough on that one. No, that you're not obliged to. Actually, look, if I really wanted it, I would have come back. But since I don't, and I've got a better thing elsewhere, no problem, I go off. And he doesn't think twice about you. But in this case, you have to go back and politely, no, sorry, I won't be buying that item and here's why. And here's a second chance for you to hard sell me on it and try and tell me some other shit about it, or tell me there's 10% off. No, you just do what you want. You're the person who has the freedom of choice as to where you purchase your shit. So then we'll go to this part. T1 trying their best to match Hanwha Life offer, but with 1+1 offer. By the way, why is T1 sitting, not improving their offer, saying we won't improve our offer through the current communication channels, but we'll meet you in person and discuss the offer? And then they're letting a main rival, it's implied Hanwha Life has more money and budget, by the way, than T1, to then go and the second the market opens, make an offer to them. You have absolutely played yourself. The agent didn't play you played yourself. You were the one who had none of the leverage and was in a really tough spot where you must get one of these two players. You literally allowed the player to have a chance to get an offer, a way better offer for someone else, so he took it. And in doing so, you also allowed the other player you wanted to sign elsewhere. Here's what you should have done logically. When you were at the position where you don't get the deal with Zeus, you offer the 3+1, but you don't offer enough salary, you then make your offer to Keen and say, right, well, if Zeus won't join for that, here's the offer for Keen. Then if Keen joins, no problem about Zeus, right? Instead, what you did is you went, well, look, Keen's not my first choice, so I still want to wait for Zeus. And actually, can I meet you? Because I need to, meet you and talk to you in person. And then, what the hell? Now I can't have Zeus and Keen's gone. What the hell? That's not what I wanted. Yeah, you fucking misplayed your hand, bro. You absolutely clowned yourself. You're a fucking idiot. I don't care if it's, but it's just the way things are done in Korea. Nah, that's not what it's about, mate. That's not what it's about at all. Then it goes, T1 trying their best to match Hanwha Life offer. Is that true? Where's that from, by the way? Who could possibly be able to say, since we're not even getting the exact amounts, that T1 was trying their best to match their offer? How do we know that? And we're just trying their best. You either have the money and you agree to do it or you don't. What's the trying? What, they're looking behind the fucking couch cushions. They're asking their friends, can I lend 100? I promise, bro, I'll pay back 150 on payday and 2 weeks. What are you talking about trying? By the way, what's the trying? You've already signed all the other players and told them Zeus is going to join and the whole branding's going to be sent to ZOFGK. We've already started selling merch. Oh, let's try our best to reach the amount. No, you either meet it or you didn't. And by the way, he's already in the free agency period now. The deadline has passed, so you either fuck or walk. You couldn't fuck, so he ended up walking. That's how it worked. But with 1+1 offer, right? Wait a second. Wait a minute. So you went from a 3+1 offer at shit salary after the guy won Worlds, his best ever negotiating point ever by leverage. And then, even though he's so essential to your whole branding, and now people have cancelled, and you're in trouble, and everyone hates Zeus, and we're going to sue people. In that case, why are we lowballing him? Why are we not just giving him a good amount of money? So it's claimed you wanted to give him a long-term contract, but fuck all salary, with a small increase in salary. I imagine his salary before was fucking a joke. And then we're changing it to like, right, well, we'll give you money, but then we're only going to give you 1 year, and then we have the option for the second year. Right, all you've done there is change one variable and make the other variable worse. I am the one with the leverage. I'm the world champion. I'm the one Hanwha Life wants. I can ask for both to be more. You're saying, well, if I give you, all right, I'll give you like big A and little b. And I'm like, well, I want big A and big B. All right, I'll give you big B and small a then. Well, that doesn't fucking work either. Why are you pretending like that's good for me? They go second year, not guaranteed. Notice they never mention in their framing that 1+1 is bad for Zeus. And by the way, it's almost the minimum contract you'd ever give a star fucking player who just won you the world championship and you need to sign. It's like the minimum possible yearly deal. You're not going to do just a year because this is just a year as far as this is concerned. It's a year plus a year for T1. It's their option to pick him up. Then it goes, and they want to meet in person to discuss. Why do they have to meet in person to discuss? By the way, here's a quick question because I'm really good at lateral thinking. Did Hanwha Life meet with Zeus, his agent, in person? If they did, that would be interesting. If they didn't, then why does everyone have to meet T1 in person? Why are we pretending that's suddenly a concern? Why are T1 Simon and they go, Simon says, when it comes to T1, you have to meet me in person to negotiate your deal. But when Simon doesn't say that, Simon says, I can make my shitty lowball offer just on the internet and you don't have to meet me. Funny how that works, isn't it? Agent says, nah, we want 2 years and you have until 3 p.m. Get ready because this is amazing. This point here is actually the craziest example I've ever seen on the internet of people seeing in front of their eyes a fact and misinterpreting it so insanely charitably for T1 is fucking mental. Because this part is about to show where T1 absolutely fucked the whole thing by the admission factually of this bozo, but they don't frame it that way. They frame it again as being sinister from the agents. So get ready. The agent says, we want 2 years. Remember, this all started at like 9 a.m. We want 2 years and you have until 3 p.m. So the deadline for this deal, we're now in free agency. If we give you a deadline, 1, we're not even obliged to keep to that. And 2, the second the deadline hits, he's not your player. He can sign with anyone that moment, even just based on what we said. So you have until 3 p.m. Pause. Now, when I read the next sentence, it better say T1 made their offer at 3:00 or p.m. If it does, then everything's fine. If it says T1 made an offer or did anything after 3 p.m., the deadline, you must, as a charitable person, acknowledge that T1 missed the deadline. So let's read the next sentence. T1 says, please meet us in person. Our COO is on his way to Incheon from Seoul right now. Estimated time of arrival, 3:40. Right. You have until 3 p.m. to match our offer. Now notice, it doesn't say, we'll meet you in person at 3 p.m. to discuss further negotiation. The agent says, we don't want to meet you. Nah, we want 2 years. 2 year, not 1+1. And you have until 3 p.m. 3 p.m. is when it's over. So they go, well, we still want to meet in person. In fact, this guy's already on his way. Why is he on his way now? What is going on with this? Why is this guy, COO, suddenly God and everyone has to do what he fucking wants? I don't get it. He's on his way now to Incheon. He'll arrive 40 minutes after the deadline. Spoiler, then he's going to be 40 minutes late. And if in those 40 minutes you find out that they don't want to deal with you anymore or he's signed elsewhere, then it's your fucking fault, isn't it, bozo? Remember, at any time before 3 p.m, you could just send a message, we agree to the terms. Or here's the next updated offer. Instead, your whole thing now, Simon says it's no longer us replying to offers. You must meet us in person. Then we will tell you something. Oh, what's that? You say the deadline is 3 p.m. Simon says the deadline is 3:40 p.m. now. And that's estimated time arrival, not even when he got there. So please wait until 3 p.m. You have to. Then it says T1 COO gets to Incheon, but agent/Zeus sign with Hanwha Life and refuse to meet and talk with COO. Right, first of all, if they already signed with Hanwha, why would I meet with you? I'm a free agent and I've signed with a different team, dickhead. You're not my boss. I don't have to do what you say. And then secondly, they never ever agreed that we're meeting you in person after 3 p.m. to have this discussion. In fact, we have repeatedly said we don't accept your terms and here's what we do want. And spoiler, we're not only negotiating with you, we have a different buyer who is meeting our terms. So once you don't offer what we want, you don't offer the euro amount we want, then you don't offer the salary amount we want, you've never ever agreed to our terms, by the way, then you want to meet in person, we don't, then we tell you, give us an offer by 3 p.m, you don't, and then after all that, not only do we sell the player elsewhere, but now we won't even meet you. For what? For a fucking reach around? What are we giving you at that point in time? What the fuck is this? What are you talking about, you lunatic? Also, why are we just travelling on fucking transport? I'm almost there. Give me 20 more minutes, mate. It's not a fucking, you're not diffusing a bomb in a fucking Hollywood thriller. Like, just, you pick up your phone and talk to them. I don't know, crazy idea. Call them at 2:59 p.m. and let it ring till it goes to 3. Fucking hell. How incompetent are these fucks? People are upset Zeus is leaving, but more with, they refused to wait 40 minutes when the free agency period opened today. There we go. He's already biased. So the free agency, he himself says, opened at 9 a.m. when offers can be made. But then he said they didn't wait 40 minutes. He's now pretending that even though he said here offers can be made after 9 a.m, that they can only be made after 3 p.m. And so what actually they did is they only let the offer market open for 40 minutes, then they didn't even let T1 make an offer. One, they wouldn't need to. T1 made offers before the market was open. T1's been making offers the whole time. Then what happened is they said from 9 a.m. we'll open the market, right? In theory, from 9 a.m. they've waited, do the maths, 6 hours of the market being open. They're saying we'll let the market be open for 6 hours. By the way, let me just blow your fucking mind with some lateral thinking. That means that if at the end of all this, it was T1 that said, you know what, actually, we've waited until 3 p.m, but thanks, but no thanks. We don't agree to your terms, Zeus. And you know what? Shock, surprise signing. I'll pick a random one. I don't know if the Shy's actually signed it, but the Shy joins out of nowhere T1. Now what do you do, by the way, if Hanwha Life in the meantime thought Zeus is going to T1 and they signed someone else? Maybe they re-signed Doran. Now Hanwha Life got fucked by the market being open for 6 hours and everyone waiting for the COO. But the point is, no one's thinking of that because people are only thinking about this topic from the position of T1 fans, the T1 org, and the feelings of the COO. Apparently, everyone else, even when the player's a free agent and no longer under contract, has to wait to give T1 a chance to get what they want. Not what Zeus wants or what the agents want or what Hanwha Life wants. No, everyone else is subservient to T1's demands because you're lunatic stans who refuse to acknowledge reality. And there we go. Opened and said they wanted to test the waters. Right, wait, which is it? They refused to wait 40 minutes when it opened, made his mind in 6 hours, right? That's so disingenuous. Because what you're implying there is Zeus can only decide if he wants to join a team after he's seen all the terms of the contract. No. You ask him before you even start getting offers, which team would you want to be on ideally? And then we're going to attenuate that based on the offer. So maybe you actually wanted to be on Hanwha, but if I get the right offer from T1, I'll stay and I want to play with those players. Or if they give me a great offer, like a 3-year deal, maybe I'm only getting a 2-year deal from Hanwha. It's like it said, 2-year offer. Maybe I get more years. The point is, he didn't make his mind up. He just decided at the end. He could already have decided why. And then the idea, it's somehow sinister. What would he be sitting thinking about for 6 hours? You made that sound sinister, like only. He made his mind in 6 hours. Mate, you could make your mind in 10 minutes. What are you talking about? This is something you could have been thinking of for weeks. You've definitely been thinking about it a lot the last few days. Refused to even meet with the COO. Right, pause. He's not obliged to meet with the COO. Why are we saying that like that's some really crazy thing? He's not under contract with T1. Do you know when the COO could have met with Zeus anytime he wanted? Every day before the 19th of November, when he was actually a contracted player of this guy who was the COO of his company. Then it goes with the CEO who made the trip out especially. No one gives a fuck if he had to go to Timbuktu, mate. This has all been done over the internet before, but suddenly we have to meet this guy. Because the COO, Josh, was someone that was passionate about the team, not passionate enough to give them all great contracts, owner and Gumayushi. How'd that work out, Kerry, etc.? Oh, but he's so passionate, you have to meet him in real life. What, so you can fucking hypnotise me? I'm so passionate. You will watch the pendulum left, right. You want to be in ZOFGK because of the merch and the fans and fake. What are you talking about? His passion is irrelevant to this fucking deal. It's just written by Stan. And loved the players. Oh, he loves them. He loves them. That's why now he is going to like vilify Zeus. They've deleted him off their website. It doesn't exist anymore. They're going to ignore all the ZOFGK branding and he's just going to try and destroy Zeus's agents for getting the best deal for him. Yeah, what a great guy. I loved the players even showing up. Like, what would this relevance be? Even showing up in a lot of their videos backstage. Right, so cause when Zeus was under contract with T1, this guy was sometimes in the background of videos. Now Zeus has to meet with him after he's already let free agency open for 6 hours and signed with a different team when they're late after the deadline. This is the most biased rendering I think I've ever seen of these facts. I can't even imagine how you could make it worse. It's actually bonkers. Here's a good one. Wanted to add another reason Korean fans are mad. Apparently, both times when T1 made offers, 3+1 and 1+1, in other words, never the deal he was asking for. I love it. I asked for 2 years. But you pretend like we offered you whatever you wanted, you chose. We're just pretending like the only part that matters is the years now. So when you offered 3+1, presumably once that amount of years, not enough salary. All right, well, because I'll give you the 1+1, so not 3+1, and more salary. Well, neither of those are what I want. I've offered you everything you could have. Bloody hell, what the hell is this? It's so disingenuous. Notice he just doesn't phrase salary again. The agent didn't make counter offers. Spoiler, they don't have to make a counter offer. One, they were already saying literally counter offers. So which is it? So this guy goes here, they offered 3+1. Zeus's agent said no. Then later on, they, let's see, he got offered a 2-year contract here. By the way, you know what? This is like, let me give you an example. This is like in this case, I'm someone who wants to sell something and you come and you say, I'll offer you 1,000 for it. And I go, no. And then I sell it to someone else for 2,000. You're like, well, you didn't even say if I give 2,000, I'll sell it. Yeah, I'm not obliged to set the number. Do you know who sets the number in a buyout like this where it's a free agent market? The buyer. Whoever the top bidder is sets what the terms are. I wouldn't set the term myself as the agent because I'd be bidding against myself. What if I say, all right, you offer me $1 million. Well, for 1.2, I'll do it. And then T1 goes, deal. And then Hanwha Life goes, I'll offer 3 million. You go, oh shit, why did I say 1.2? I should have waited for... No, this is totally inappropriate the way this is phrased. They didn't even make counter offers. They're not obliged to. They are going to sell to whoever they think is the best. They don't have to sell to T1. This is phrased as though this agent should be doing everything he can to get Zeus into T1. And that's the best for everyone. The agent, Zeus and T1. It's just the best for T1. So it seems like they never planned on accepting T1's offers. Just played with their front office SEO. Right, let's go back. So all they did is just play with them. So that means when I read some of the other reports, there better never be years cited or things specifically asked for. Because what's weird here is, when they put all this shit, they're implying this was never ever in good faith. They were never, no matter what amount they offered, they were never going to accept. Conveniently, they never came close to the offer of Hanwha Life, apparently. But when the guy goes, the salary doesn't meet my expectations, apparently that means I was never going to accept your offer. So even if you'd said then, I'm supposed to believe this, I'll give you 4 to 5 million in 2 years, what Hanwha Life apparently later offered, they would have just said again, well, that also doesn't meet our offer. How could you know that? The worst part about this is you can't have that information in this negotiation, but pretending we all know what everyone was thinking and what everyone wanted the whole time. Then we'll go to some of the other ones. This one goes more details on the contract negotiation. Accordingly, negotiations between Zeus and the T1 office were scheduled for the morning of the 19th, but the meeting was postponed due to the agent's request for postponement on the same day, as in to check the market. The Zeus's agent's position was different from T1's. Yeah, no shit. The Zeus agent said, we only agreed to contact you that morning and we did not finalise the meeting schedule. I imagine they just said, we want to test free market, and then they took that as, well, you will meet us later. However, we did not close communication with T1 at all, and we were communicated over the phone. Again, why do you have to meet in person? What's going to meet in person that's going to change the terms of these deals? That's the sinister part I want to know. We conveyed our final proposal to T1. Now, we were just told earlier there was no final. They're saying we gave our final offer, and the situation continued where there was no positive result. Notice how differently this is framed from what T1 said. Even with the two sides' positions divided and the meeting schedule postponed, negotiations continued through non-face-to-face means. We still haven't found out, did Hanwha Life have to meet in person? In order to more actively persuade the player, You're giving away the whole game there, mate. Exactly. You're not going to give him more years or more money. You're just going to meet him and try and be more charismatic in person. That sounds fucked up in itself, by the way. Look, you should do it as T1. You play every card you got, but that's nothing good for Zeus and his agent. General Manager Yong Ho Yun and CEO An Woon Ki were moved to negotiate directly with Zeus, even better. This is something people are presenting as like sinister that he couldn't do this. And I think this is fucking gross. So think about what this says. They moved to negotiate directly with Zeus, who resides in Incheon. No, you negotiate with Zeus's agents. Why are you trying to cut out his agent and talk to him directly? I'll tell you why. Because if he told his agents, I only want these things, they will stick to that and stick to their guns and make sure they do hard negotiation to get that. But if you meet the player one-on-one without his agent, just like if a cop interviewed a kid without a fucking lawyer there, he could potentially influence what that person thought or what they thought the situation or what was possible or even lie to them and tell them a false bill of goods, right? That's already sinister, the idea that you're like, actually, let me meet without talking or let me meet you directly. No, he's a free agent, bro, now. He doesn't have to meet you. You can do it all through the agents in the same way as when he was under contract with T1 and all couldn't come and talk to Zeus directly. He had to ask your permission, right? So Zeus isn't obliged to meet you. T1 narrowed the difference in the amount of money in terms of the conditions of the opponents competing to recruit him. This even implies they met him in person and they tried to narrow this down. But okay, that's interesting. However, the decision was made before they could narrow their differences. According to the report, T1 proposed a 1 year. They might have offered just a 1 year contract to a double reigning champion who might never ever win Worlds again and have that negotiating leverage again. Sounds like you don't really want him that much and you don't plan on building around him in this branding at all. Or a 1+1 plan considering the increase in the amount. They keep saying considering that. Why didn't Hanwha Life have to consider the increase in the amount? Why were they able to get like a 2 year deal instead of 1+1 for more money? It's weird that. Zeus said 2 years. Pause. Didn't the last report claim there was no counter offers ever made? Now Zeus himself is saying, I want 2 years. So in other words, 1+1 would be inappropriate. I have the leverage. I'm asking for 2 full guaranteed years. You're saying I'll do 1+1. I think that's something else confusing people. I think they see 1+1 and they go 1+1 equals 2. That's the same as 2. No, 2 years guaranteed is very different from 1 year plus a 1 year option. In the same way as guaranteed money in the NFL is everything and non-guaranteed money means you might never get it if you break your leg. Zeus's agent said, in the initial negotiations, we never made a counteroffer regarding the annual salary. Okay. The amount initially proposed by T1 was a condition that we could not accept. By the way, potentially even because Zeus said, I don't want to go below this amount. And although we ended up receiving a slightly increased amount than this year's annual salary right before free agency, we continued conveying to T1 from the beginning that we would not negotiate further, but would rather receive a market evaluation. In other words, we won't negotiate till we know what the market's going to offer. That's totally reasonable. Until you know what the offer is, because the buyer sets the price, you can't actually know if the offer for Zeus is fair or appropriate to the market value. And since he's now a free agent, it's his own prerogative to get the market value. He's not under contract with you. You could have signed him any time this year. They continued. We told T1 that the deadline for accepting the offer was 3 p.m. and eventually waited. In other words, it's the other way around. They didn't sign at 9:01 a.m. with Hanwha Life. They waited until the deadline, and then they even waited 40 minutes more after the deadline. They just sat there twiddling their thumbs while he wasn't there, and they're going, ETA 3:40, like some fucking, you know when your friend gets out of bed and he goes, I'm in the car, but he's actually still just showering for the night out, and you know he's going to be 20 minutes late. They're doing that about signing the key piece of their fucking dynasty. They waited until 3:40. The amount was somewhat similar. In other words, they didn't meet the deadline is you got to accept the offer on this time. They weren't able to do it. There was a serious difference in opinion regarding the contract length. In other words, we'll not only give you less money than you asked for, but we also won't give you the contract length. In other words, we don't agree to any of the terms you want, and we're late. T1 said, even though we were unilaterally informed of the 3 p.m. deadline, so they admit it, we rushed to Incheon to continue negotiations. No, the deadline was the deadline. It wasn't like when you get here, the deadline starts. You could do this all over phone, and requested further negotiations by phone, but we received a rejection from the agent. We've already given you our final terms and the final time that you can agree. In fact, you can even imply they did that out of politeness. One, for the fact Zeus did play for T1, but also two, maybe T1 fucking booked their ideas up and actually matched match the offer, in which case, I'm going to guess, this all doesn't seem like the behaviour of someone playing T1. This seems like the behaviour of someone who's got a better deal from elsewhere, is giving T1 extra chances to match the deal, and I don't ever have to tell you what the deal is, by the way, but it's implied people ask for 2 years and certain amounts, and then you didn't match any of it, or do any of the things I said, and at the end, you're mad at me. Eventually, Zeus accepted an offer from somewhere other than T1, even the way that's phrased is hilarious. No, he accepted one from a better team. After 3:40 p.m, 40 minutes late, 6 hours 40 into being a free agent. You know how musical chairs work? If you wait ages and ages, all the spots are gone, like when Keane's gone. By the way, in this scenario, you're agreeing, if you hate the agents, that they've let Keane already sign with Gen G. So now he can't go to Gen G either. Now there's not an option for that. Now there's only Hanwha Life, and it depends what they do with Doran. Or what will happen if Doran got re-signed, and now they have to accept this shitty deal. Exactly. To do the best for Zeus, you would never do it the way T1's saying. You would actually do it more similar to how they have done it. Perhaps, get ready, perhaps it was because he was reluctant to accept the 1-year offer. Now that's been made absolutely clear. He will not, and that is an unacceptable term. Don't then pretend, maybe it was just the years. It was none of this deal. He didn't want any of this deal. T1 arrived at the negotiation site after 4 p.m. Oh my God. So you know that whole thing. Now you know why they said the whole ETA. It's because they stopped the clock at 3:40, 4 minutes late. T1 wasn't even 40 minutes late. They were 1 hour late to physically arrive for a negotiation that could be done via the internet and phone. But Zeus' contract had already ended. His contract ended at 9 a.m, dom-dom. It was ended after the 18th. But you've made it sound like they've ended his contract and you didn't get a chance. Oh, it's so unfair. Oh, it's so unfair. Oh, there's a bunch of other things as well. I've just realised for this one, there's another way it was phrased that I'll quickly read that I just saw. It was actually in that video by someone called Rival. I'm not particularly familiar with them. So I assume these are from somewhere else, but a lot of this shit was getting deleted. So we'll read these out quickly. So it says, negotiation process. Following their World Championship victory, T1 initiated contract discussions with each player, spearheaded by the CEO and director. Keria was the first to finalise his renewal, with Owner and Gumayushi following shortly after. Again, should have done Zeus first. Fans of T1 strongly voiced their desire to preserve the roster, irrelevant as to whether Zeus has to sign. This sentiment was reflected in the overwhelming demand for T1's 2024 World Championship merchandise during pre-orders. Sounds like you should keep that lineup together. It's got literally implied value for your company, as you found out. So again, it might have been worth shelling out 300, 400k more. The CEO remarked, the enthusiasm shown for the championship merchandise clearly confers the fans' hopes for all players to re-sign. Wait, you've already said in all those other ones, they always planned to do it and they always planned to re-sign. They always planned to inherit it. They didn't. All their messaging this year wasn't like that at all. Despite this momentum, negotiations with Zeus faced significant hurdles, as though fans wanting it and selling merch and liking it and other people signing now means that's momentum that should make Zeus sign. What's that got to do with Zeus' deal? If anything, it makes Zeus' leverage even greater, so now he should ask for even more. T1 reportedly presented 3 proposals, with the final offer including a slight, keyword slight, not even good, you get a slight increase for winning your second World Championship in a row, for fuck's sake, and a 3+1 year contract term, emphasising the organisation's commitment to a long-term partnership just for fuck all money. However, disagreements over salary and contract duration persisted, preventing an agreement. Yeah, when you can't agree to any terms, you tend not to have an agreement, mate. Reasons for departure, like you could know. When the free agency market opened, Zeus received competitive offers from other teams. Yeah, it's almost like it's not just you buying from one person. There's actually a bunch of other people in the market. He's now a free agent. A final meeting between T1 and Zeus was planned for the morning of the 19th. Was it? But was postponed at the request of Zeus' representative. Interesting, okay. By the way, explain this to me, someone, please. If the meeting was originally planned, we'll just do it, and then they go, we need to delay it 6 hours or whatever, then that implies you would have been there at 9 a.m, but you can't be there at 3 p.m. What's going on here, mate? What is going on here? According to the representative, the meeting that morning was never officially confirmed. We had only intended to communicate at that time. We submitted our final proposal to T1. They claim they never got one, but there was no positive feedback. Although T1 made significant efforts to bridge the gap, did they? It sounds like they just kept playing silly beggars and going, I'll put one down and the other up and the other down and the other up. They never made significant. Significant would be you bring both closer to what I asked for. The difference in contract duration remained unresolved. While T1 proposed a 1 year or 1+1 year term, Zeus' side held firm on a 2-year agreement. So you're only an entire year of guaranteed play off. Ultimately, after the representative's 3 p.m. deadline passed without a resolution, Zeus accepted an offer from another team. Nothing sinister about that. Zeus's agent said, in the initial negotiations, we never made a counteroffer regarding the annual salary. The amount initially proposed by T1 was a condition that we could not accept. And although we ended up receiving a slightly increased amount than this year's salary. Oh, I already read that part. Oh, here we go. Then there was this comment. It goes, new update. Keane and Zeus are from the same agency. Rumours, they let Keane re-sign in the morning first. That would make Zeus have more leverage if you don't know. So Keane isn't in the market now. Then they can charge way more for Zeus and increase the money. What's wrong about that, by the way? Don't you want Zeus to get paid? Why can't a world champion, potentially the best player ever at that role and in the world now at that position, why can't he just get the biggest salary in the world? What am I waiting for? This actually matches why Zeus' side didn't show up in the morning meeting. Yeah, they were selling Keane. T1 is fucking angry. They described this as a grey area in law. Yeah, they wouldn't say grey area if it was guilty. This just sounds like, oh, we hope we can find something. And then this comment's a banger. I can't go into detail, but even though I have a different agent than Zeus and Keane, it doesn't make much of a difference. T1 had finalised a verbal agreement, but the agent delayed things, saying they'd match T1. By the way, when they say verbal agreement, please understand that just means they asked Zeus while he was under contract. He went, yeah, I'll rejoin, assuming the contract all makes sense. They keep saying verbal agreement, like he said, I'm going to definitely join, but he doesn't agree with any of the terms. So when I say, yeah, I'll join, but then you go, right, 1 cent, you said you'd join, play for 1 cent, dickhead. That's not in good faith, is it? So it goes saying they'd match T1's maximum offer and would let me know before finalising the individual contract. I don't know if this is about Joe Marsh or whatever. However, instead of proceeding, the agent stalled to make more money. Sounds great. Sounds like he's killing it for Zeus, saying negotiations should resume on the 19th during free agency. This delay raised suspicions. Spoiler, what suspicions? He's entered free agency. You already should know you potentially lost him. This delay raised suspicions. You're the one suspiciously not giving him the terms, fuckface, who, by the way, doesn't suspiciously want him to test the market and find out someone else is going to offer him way more. Especially when Hanwha also offered a slightly higher deal, less than 500 million Korean won, $327,000. During this time, T1, after staying quiet, reconnected with Hanwha, and it became known that the agent had been in contact with them as well. Oh, so you're now contacting other teams. Hey, what's going on with you? Are you in contact with him? What's that going to do with this deal? Ultimately, Doran's agent was called and a quick agreement, cool sign, was made. I'm not sure how much of this will appear in the media, but T1 initially aimed to rebrand with Faker as the central figure, shocker, meeting the players' desired conditions and signing multi-year contracts, so they didn't do the latter part, by the way. However, Wuji's agent, Zeus, has been operating in a very grey area legally, creating a mess for everyone. He didn't create a mess for Zeus. What are you talking about? Or Hanwha Life. T1 now plans to gather evidence of these illegal activities. Well, before you said it was a grey area. So is it illegal or is it grey area? And send a formal notice of proof of content. Currently, T1's financial situation seems complicated. The branding around Faker has taken a hit and merchandise plans are being cancelled. There's even talk, by the way, why would Zeus care about that? It's merch for a team I don't play for, from a championship I won, but it's not something I'm involved with anymore. There's even talk of blocking the agent. But again, cut off your nose, spite your face anytime you feel like it. And frontline representative COO has been very vocal, shouting that they won't tolerate the situation. It's clear this become a very contentious issue. Rather than blocking things outright, I wish the agent had acted with more care. They scrapped their original plans and sought market evaluation. Why is that sinister? To find out how much he's worth. And they were right, by the way, that he was worth way more and with a way better deal. But they didn't place a competitive bid or finalise the deal. Right, now when I get a better deal elsewhere, you've told me you won't give me a better deal. I have to now come and tell you, but I want this better deal. Will you give me it? You've already said you won't. I don't have to ever go to you ever again. T1 is trying to build a case, cancel the contracts, and distance themselves from the agent. Despite being a different company, the agent seems to be causing issues across the board. No, only with T1 actually. T1 intends to reveal these problems to the public, likely resulting in news coverage and serious legal consequences. Yeah, that's why you're bragging and giving all this info in public. In a court case, you don't want any of your dodgy info to be out there, you moron. T1 originally planned to make Faker the central figure of their rebranding, while meeting the players' desired conditions. Say a million times that they intended to meet their desired conditions when you didn't meet them. Including, in fact, I'll even speculate that you actually used the fact he said Zeus is signing when he gave it all it's going to be ZOFGK. I think you actually used that to leverage against Owner and Kerry and Gumyushi and give them shittier deals. I would say they got fucked by T1 and they should have tested their free agency, by the way. But okay. including multi-year deal. Say that a million times, then keep saying 1+1. 1+1 isn't a multi-year deal for the player. It's a multi-year deal for the org. Shut the fuck up being disingenuous. They verbally agreed. Say that a million times. I didn't get the salary amounts. Stop pretending I agreed to the contract, but just didn't sign it. And worked out most of the details. Oh, except the contract length and the amount. What are the most details? They're the two most important ones. Including maximising their offer and getting player approval. Oh, players approved the deal, but you're acting like the agents did. All Zeus was locked in a cupboard and secretly wants to be on T1. However, plans B and C fell apart, causing internal chaos among T1 staff. Well, boo fucking who for those poor, enraged T1 staff, eh? What's actually amazing about this particular story is I am wearing the same clothes as yesterday to keep continuity, but I may as well just tell you because it's going to change how I now talk about the rest of the case, that overnight the rest of the story came out like a bunch of the other information, seemingly all we're going to get, that even changes the story. But if you know where I was in the video just a moment ago, it's almost in chronological order. I just ended going through all the current stuff from up to yesterday, and now I can show you the additional information that's come out. So there was a bunch of stuff, like for example, there was a whole story about how the LPL was trying to sign Zeus apparently during that whole time period of the free agency. And then there's Joe Marsh's AMA he did on FM Korea where he gave his take on it, and then the agents themselves have come out. So let's go through all of that stuff, then I'll get to my original points about T1, though obviously in theory some of the facts have been disputed and potentially changed. So if we go here, first things first, we're going to read this whole thing about the idea that Zeus could have gone to the LPL. So it says, in one of eSports Maniacor's latest shows, Shoto, whoever that is, a correspondent for China Gap who currently lives in China, shared that after Worlds, Zeus had long negotiations with top eSports. Now already, by the way, the most interesting part there is the way that's even phrased, because notice it doesn't say, once free agency began, he had a lot of discussions. So there's two things I want to point out right at the beginning here. By the way, I have no idea how legit this is. Could all be complete nonsense and hearsay. Obviously, consider that in this particular case. I will say, the way that's phrased is after Worlds. Well, Worlds ended a few weeks back, so that makes it sound like top esports was already talking to Zeus. Well, that would obviously be poaching, wouldn't it? And potentially illegal, unless T1 had given permission for Zeus and his agents to talk to top esports. So actually, the implication to me, with the way that's phrased, is that T1, even though they've never mentioned this elsewhere, they make it sound like it was just them trying to negotiate with Zeus, and they always planned to sign him. And then, these agents, they're evil, and they're coming with Hanwha Life, suddenly swooping in, and that's interesting already, that phrasing, because that makes it sound like T1 already maybe knew they wouldn't sign everyone, and they told Zeus, yeah, okay, you can talk to that LPL team that wants to talk to you. That'd be interesting in itself, right? Because if indeed you had long negotiations with a team in another region you haven't played in, that implies to me you are open to that move. If you're the guy where actually there's going to be this top lane swap in Korea, because remember, Kane might have actually left Gen G, and potentially all the top laners are up for grabs in Korea, you actually don't even know if you're going to stay in T1. If you don't want LPL at all, for due diligence, you should do it. You should check out every single offer. But to keep going back and have this long negotiation, I mean, as far as I can tell here, it seems like you had a longer negotiation with top esports and the LPL teams than you did with fucking T1. So that's kind of telling in itself. Makes me think that T1 story isn't quite what it's cracked up to be, as in they presented and everyone wanted to stay and everyone agreed, and it was just a case of doing some little negotiations, and it was only 400 kit, and it already sounds sus as fuck, doesn't it? So then it goes, these talks reached a full agreement on the financial side, something that never happened with T1 as far as we're aware. But the deal fell through because of two conditions set by Zeus or his agency. Those conditions were, by the way, in a weird way, the conditions make it seem more plausible. If you had nothing, it was and then the deal just ended for reasons. These actually do sound like plausible reasons you might give. Otherwise, you won't, as someone with insane leverage, who might be the best top player in the world or of all time, and just won Worlds twice in a row. If I'm going to leave LCK, I've seen people go to the LPL and end up on teams where they're sick and their teammates are shit, or they have two good teammates and then two that are absolutely atrocious, and you just can't win. So if I'm leaving Korea, bear in mind in Korea I could be on T1, Gen G, Hanwha Life. I'm only going to the LPL if one, it's a team that pays me the fucking money and gives me that fucking bag and that long-term contract. But also, I better know I've got elite players, so I have another chance to win worlds. Otherwise, in that analogy, you don't even got an elite mid laner. Why not just stay with Faker? Of all the non-elite mid laners, he's one of the best at being a captain and shot calling. You've already played with him for years and years. Now, admittedly, you'd get more money this way. But actually, Zeus doesn't seem motivated only by money. That's why I actually feel like he maybe even feels disrespected by T1. And he's gone to Hanwha Life genuinely wanting to make his own legacy. I think he's probably sick of being blamed. Just my speculation alone. So then it says, replace Cream with a top tier mid laner. I don't blame him for that. Cream actually is good, by the way, but the problem is, if you're Zeus, you want to win now. You don't want to wait another potential year for that guy to develop more, to get over some issues. You want the guy who already is cracked, like Knight, who already could have won worlds based on his place. It says, presumably Knight, because obviously it was in the mix that maybe Knight would leave and go elsewhere. It put sign a superstar support player, because obviously in this particular scenario, does that mean Mako wasn't signed already? Which is bizarre, because I would consider Mako a superstar support player, but that maybe it was already decided they'd go elsewhere. It says, Shoto says that Zeus didn't want to play with any mid laner who wasn't strong. It says TES couldn't meet Zeus's demands because they didn't think they could sign Knight. I mean, that does seem the case. And also, by the way, Knight is incredibly expensive. And they couldn't get Scouts either. That's interesting, the idea that the replacement could have been Scout. Because that means already, just for a second, for fun, just imagine a team that is Zeus top lane, Scout mid lane, Jackie Love ADC, a good support, and then do they keep Tian? Isn't that already, by the way, fucking amazing? That's a super team right there. Like, a whole bunch of those players are like champions, fucking MVPs. That's a fucking banger roster. Like, people who think this is just neither here nor there, unless it's just pure hearsay, this itself is a very viable squad you should consider leaving T1 for. But it just couldn't be assembled because, as it says here, they couldn't get Jackie Love either, since they already had they couldn't get Scout since they already had Jackie Love, and apparently Scout wants to play with Gala from LNG. So the negotiations fell apart. Also, wasn't it the story that people said that Gala helped pay some of the money? I can't remember if they said it was Gala or Ruler in the end. People said it was a Ruler in the end. I think they said in the joke because he didn't want you to get out to play or whatever. But didn't people say that there was some scenario where Gala was helping Scout with the money so that he could get to Worlds? And then obviously at Worlds, they made it to quarterfinals. So interesting detail that they're pals apparently. In an even more recent stream from Esport Maniacals, Shoto mentioned that, according to LPL team sources, Zeus still hadn't signed with HLE. This is very interesting. The day after T1's Thank You Zeus. Right, that is crazy, because that even implies that the negotiations were shut down or had just completely ghosted T1. But if this is true, it's not even that you let go one branch, but you didn't have hold of the other branch yet. That's crazy. That would, by the way, be incompetence from the agents of Zeus, if so. So that's quite interesting. He even said that an LPL organisation told him Zeus was 100% joining a Chinese team, JDG. By the way, that is notorious in the off-season, that you get these bullshit merchants in their region going, he's definitely signing. What that means is someone's told him we're doing negotiations, it's going really well and we're getting quite far. And they just think, right, to sound like I have the extra info, I'm just going to go one step further in the process. Say, they got him, it's already going to happen. And then what you do is, if it happens, you go, see, and if it doesn't, they come out with something I've heard last second, something happened, he asked for something extra, and then you just say some bollocks that no one can confirm or deny, and probably no one will call out, and then you get away with it, don't you? So that already isn't that plausible when they say that part. You hear that every off-season, by the way. I've heard some crazy stories about this Korean's going to LC, and they never ever do. They never even leave Korea. But an hour later, the deal completely fell apart because Zeus had decided to go with Hanwha Life Esports instead. By the way, I wouldn't blame him. These two other teams, you'd need to know all the players being built. Hanwha Life, you are the final piece to make that team cracked out. Unless they could have signed Chovy, how can you even make that team better? You know what I mean? It's unbelievable how good that roster is. Among other things, China Gap completely denies the rumour about the deadline that Zeus' agency supposedly set for T1. More about that coming soon. Since they've been told by LPL sources, this is huge, that two organisations made offers for Zeus on the same morning his signing with Hanwha Life was announced. The day after, I think. That is fucking bonkers. That is wild. And also, that just shows to me how spiteful T1 is. Because if you don't know, as soon as they couldn't sign Zeus and they thought all the deadlines are passing all that shit, they like immediately announced Doran pretty much. So it almost seems like they went out their way to get ahead of that one, didn't they? And make it seem like they did. In fact, that even applies to me if he wasn't signed. That's why you then came and immediately went, thank you, Zeus. Because what you're saying is like, oh, he's not on our team anymore. And you're actually trying to maybe even signal to other teams, oh, he's already signed it. So maybe you fuck him. And suddenly there's only one bidder left at the end. You could even imply that was part of the reprisal against Zeus, couldn't you? So after that, then we finally had two of the main people, someone from T1. Now, suspiciously, it was Joe Marsh. Not that COO who's super passionate and loves all the players and wants to be hands-on, and he was the one physically going there. Bizarrely, he's not the one answering and me seeing an awesome translation. Instead, we've got Checksnow's bozo American shithead, Joe Marsh, who we still don't even know how much he knows about Korean culture and Korean fucking esports. So, bizarrely, you send out the clown to entertain the fucking rodeo instead of, like, in this particular case, the guy involved in the deal. That already so fucking suspicious, isn't it, right there? Because that means now Joe Marsh can go, I don't know about this, and I can only say this. It's like, well, we'll get the guy who fucking knows then. Get the guy who knows, you fucking moron. Also, why are you, a Westerner, addressing the Korean fan base about entirely Korean esports matters? Surely you address us, the Westerners, and leave the, I don't know, fucking Korean to talk to the Koreans. I love it. So let's get into that. And then after that, the actual agents of Zeus gave their own thoughts. And as you can imagine, people disagreed. So let's get into this shit, shall we? So here we go on FM Korea, one of the main websites, Joseph Patrick Marsh, guy with two first names. Obviously, all this shite here, we'll skip all that. So let's go to here. Obviously, we're going to read the English translations. Right, is it true that T1 couldn't agree to terms with Zeus to meet his demands of 2 billion Korean won, as Han Yi, Chinese streamer, mentioned? Right, wait there 1 second. Let's just quickly look how much 2 billion Korean won is worth. 2 billion Korean won is 1.4 million US dollars. So he was asking for 1.4 million US dollars, but obviously the question is, how many years is that over? If it's 2, that's interesting. That's actually quite reasonable, I think, even for a player as good as Zeus. Like, there's way bigger contracts than that in the LPL. He put, that is not true. We were never given the opportunity to match any offer. Additionally, the agent did not present any counter offers to the proposals we had sent. Now, the weirdest thing about that, and this is the really interesting detail to me, is T1 keeps disputing the notion they ever had a financial back and forth that they think was like enough or appropriate. But they always say about these counter offers, they always ignore that they themselves seem to acknowledge that there was pushback against the length of the contract, which actually seems, as far as I can tell, to be more important to Zeus than the dollar amount. Hence why he was asking at one point for 2 years or 3+1, and then he just didn't want the 1+1, and apparently that was the main term. And then even though the salary difference might have been hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I already find it interesting they're only doing that seemingly about the money part. And then secondly, I don't care how many T1 stands tell me. I understand to a T1 stand, you want Zeus to be in T1. I understand to T1, you want Zeus to be in T1. Your problem is this. That doesn't mean Zeus wants to be in T1 under all circumstances. So one thing I find really disturbing is this constant notion that somehow the agents of Zeus are the guys who are the bad guys because they're not just letting you cheat and win the game. Like, basically, a negotiation is a game. It's a game of, it's a bit like League of Legends. It's a game where no one has perfect information. You don't quite know how I feel or how much I want to do something. You're trying to attenuate that and shift and manipulate me by offering better terms. But at the same time, you don't want to give up the maximum terms yourself as the team at the most years and the most money because you don't have to necessarily. So the game of negotiation is I'm guessing what you really want, but what you might accept. You're guessing what I want, but I might accept. And then we're playing and pushing each other back and forwards and seeing as each card is played, who has the leverage and who gets the edge and then who can push, and then who can pull back, and then who can make. And then also, then there's the interaction of external forces. We have other bidders coming in with different length contracts or different things. Oh, you can play with this player, or you can have more money here, or you can have a longer term contract but for less, or you can have a short term one for even more. And you have all these options, right? In this analogy, think of an auction. If you're at an auction I go, right, I'm selling the player Zeus. I'm going to start, and I'll say in this scenario, this is like what the person who puts the item up for the auction says is their minimum, right? I'm going to say, obviously the minimum I'm willing to accept is I want a 2-year contract with like, I don't know, in this case, you could just say like, whatever amount, 400,000, pick a number, right, to start with. Now, in this analogy, it's like T1 goes, we offer a 1+1 contract, and I'll make up a number, less than 300,000, less than the other guys, right? In this analogy, right, if it was really an auction, you could hear what the other guy says, so you'd know what his offer is. In this scenario, though, it's like an auction where you don't get to know what the other person's bidding. You just know that the auctioneer didn't say, going to the man who offered 1+1 plus that amount, once, twice, 3. What he says instead is he keeps the auction going. Now, that alone, the fact that they haven't accepted your offer, means you know they don't think your offer is good enough. So as a result, the notion, they then have to come back and go, well, it isn't good enough in exactly this way. What you're asking now, if you're Joe Marsh, is actually unconscionable. It would literally be, in my opinion, a moral and potentially professional violation of the work ethics and principles of the agent if he actually told T1, essentially, it sounds like Joe Marsh is really saying, Zeus's agent is supposed to say to T1, here's the minimum offer we're willing to accept. So if you just match that now, we won't keep negotiating with other parties that will offer us more. And in fact, we won't even use your initial offer to then go and leverage a bigger offer from them. If you just give us that minimum amount now, I'll save you the whole game, Joe and T1, of how negotiations are and you trying to get the best deal for yourself and me trying to get, and I'll just give you essentially the best possible deal for you based on the rest of the factors here. That isn't an absurd fucking premise to ever put forwards as reasonable or what would normally happen or should have happened in this case. Like if you offer me, I want a 2-year deal. Here's 1+1 and not that great an amount of money. And then 2 other people, not just Hanwha. Hanwha comes along and then they go, I'll offer you, I don't know, 2 or 3 years and millions of dollars. Then 2 LPL teams like, hey, we'll do this and massive money. In that scenario, I don't ever then have to go back to the worst of all of my offers and go, if you put it up to this, then we'll accept your offer and stop dealing with the other people. In fact, right now, you're the least interesting offer to me because everyone else is offering more and they're all bidding against each other. Like maybe in this scenario, the reason I'm not going back to T1 is T1 has quite frankly shown on the initial pushback, they're not going to give me what I want in terms of years. They don't seem they want to spend much money. I've maybe even heard they've lowballed Owner and Kerry and Gumushi, etc. And I know that these other orgs, like the LPL ones, are going to be mega motivated to pay more and give more because I'm going to have to leave Korea. In that scenario, wouldn't I spend more of my time as the agent of Zeus talking to Top Esports, JDG and Hanwha Life rather than keeping going back to the worst, seemingly least motivated bidder because they only want the best possible deal for themselves apparently in T1. But in this analogy, he expects you to just go, forget the rest of the game. I'm not good at this game, so can you just tell me how to win, though? Can you just tell me how to win? What counter offer? Why would Zeus be making offers to T1? Bro, I am the reigning world champion top laner. People like Dom are saying I am the GOAT top laner. I am fucking entering my 4th full year of my career. And right now, I am in my prime. I could be this good for 3 or 4 years more, which means another Worlds every year if I'm on the right team. And I could now be on the team that can win every tournament in League. Why would I be going, you only offered this? I want $50 more. Deal, sir. And then, oh shit, that guy was just going to come in the room 10 minutes later and offer me $2 million more. This guy, the worst thing about the gaslighting from Joe Marsh is when it benefits him, he expects you to behave in his interests when they counter your own. Now imagine if I said that like a player wanted to join T1, but T1 didn't have enough money. So they should just pay this player twice as much money because he really wants to join. And it doesn't matter that T1 goes, well, not only do we not want to pay that, but he'll also join for less than that. I go, no, but to be nice to him, you should pay him. No, you should tell him what your max offer you would pay him would pay. What are you talking about, you bozo? What the fuck are you talking about? Then it goes, can you just show how much Zeus is getting paid by signaling with your fingers? Notice how T1 wants to have some transparency, but they're going to give you no information and details. All they're going to do is, we're not here to actually provide any information you can make your own decisions off. We're just here to tell you how to frame this from our perspective and what to think. What's the point of this AMA? Ask me anything. Sure. I mean, I won't fucking answer any of it, but lol. You'd have to ask Zeus, or better yet, try his agent, if you can actually get him on the table. Now, what's brilliant about that one is the last part where he goes, try his agent, is it's like, Bozo, then why am I talking to you? And then secondly, if you can actually get him on the table, didn't that agent come to you initially and talk to you initially, but your initial offer was just shit? By the way, here's a question, a real riddle, Joe Marsh and T1 fans. Can you give me even a conceptual, just speculate, can you come up with any reason you can reverse engineer of why these agents, just specifically the only org in the world they're fucking is T1? Can you explain why the agents of Zeus, who's gained a lot from being in T1, only want to fuck T1 by your logic? Because I haven't even yet heard like a theory of mind of how they're thinking or why they're so against you or they're so evil or they're just doing all this fucked up shit. That's the part I don't get, because here's what's weird. You know that if you can actually get him on the table, Hanwha Life's getting him on the table, mate. They're having no problems at all. JDG, Top Esports might even be able to do negotiations. They might have been doing negotiations for weeks. How are they able to get this guy on the phone, get him to the table, but you can't? Also, lastly, notice that detail there. He doesn't go, if you can get him on the phone, because we know they've been in contact with their agents. They were even in contact with the agents after they didn't meet them in real life about the whole deadline, all that shit. So then the question is, if you can get him on the table, yeah, that's the thing, because you then changed the rules where when you weren't getting it your way, now all of a sudden we have to meet in person with this specific guy, otherwise there can't be a negotiation. We're just going to pretend that's normal. That's how all our negotiations work. Even though, as I said earlier, then why were you making offers without having met in person? That's a bit conspicuous, isn't it? So let's keep going. How much was Zeus's offer from T1? Get ready for how shit this is all going to be. You're never going to get any interesting info. It would not be appropriate for me to disclose the specific details of Zeus's offer from T1. In that case, how about shut the fuck up about all the details? What I can share is that get ready, this is just going to be some bollocks in it. What I can share, let's see, this is going to be really interesting here, is we aimed to give each of our players the top salary in their respective position, right? The word aimed is doing all the heavy lifting there. Because what it implies is this: we really wanted and were trying to give all of our players the most money for anyone in their position. Well, in that scenario, then T1 is incapable of doing that, and by a massive amount. How are players, as you'll find out later, getting lowballed or getting massively outbid elsewhere if you're trying to match it? What that implies is you don't have the cap or the actual budget to do so. So in that scenario, you're being quite disingenuous, because if I go into a casino and I have $100 and someone goes, "What are you here for?" and I say, "Well, I'm aiming to play in the highest stakes cash game in this casino, but I only have $100 and the highest cash stakes game is like 1,000, 2,000 blinds. So I wouldn't even be able to enter the game." So it doesn't matter that I say I'm aiming to do it and giving you the notion you might see me in that game. You'll never see me in that game. I don't have the money. In fact, it's even nonsense to say I'm aiming for that. I can't do it. It's just a fucking bollocks thing to say. It's also so dirty when you then do lowball people, as we'll get to later. With this goal as our foundation, says the people constantly lowballing, we negotiated with all the players' agents, including Zeus's. Throughout, I don't know why he says that like he gets a medal. Yeah, you have to do that. That's called being responsible. Throughout the process, however, Zeus's agent did not provide us with a single counter-proposal. Okay, sounds like he doesn't want to join your org, pal. Why is that not allowed? Have I missed something? Wasn't his contract ending? Didn't you allow his contract to end? So you showed you didn't want to re-sign him before when it was your prerogative and you had all the option. You just let his contract end, and then other people offered awesome shit, and he'd already been in your org for 4 years, and he just decided, actually, I'm just going to go. So why is that not allowed? Why is that sinister in some way? Why do we have to give you the like first refusal on whether he joins T1 or not? Why can't he go? Is that your initial offer? I'm not even interested then. And then you go, yeah, but then he was baiting us out and playing for time. Sounds like his agent's really smart then. Look, I think that's immoral. I wouldn't never do anything dishonest. But all the rest of you don't give a fuck about honesty and truth. You all just love to go, lol, get owned. Obviously he'd lie, you fool. Well, you think he's just going to say that? Like, you all play that game all the time when it suits you. So don't come back to me now. This is unfair. He wasn't being honest. You aren't. So you don't get to say that, fuckface. Then it goes, when he, the agent, visited our office on Friday, he openly stated that he had nothing to say. By the way, why does he have to have anything to say? He's not there to convince you to let Zeus to join T1. He's there to get the best deal from the deals available and pursue the most motivated bidders. And if you're not one of them, then he's judged that accordingly. Take it up with him, dickhead. Which struck us as unusual for someone whose role is to negotiate contracts. Sounds to me like he's negotiating with other teams and he just doesn't need you, mate. Maybe he even heard within the scene. You know, you said it was implied elsewhere. They were talking to Hanwha Life. Maybe teams talk and people know that T1 doesn't have that much to offer for the player this time. After signing the 3 players, I wouldn't do that if Zeus was the important part. We even submitted an additional proposal. Well, that's crazy. You put a first bid in, a mad lowball. It doesn't get accepted, and you submit another one. Well, fucking hell. It's like you're inventing negotiation on the fly here, Joe. Fucking hell, my dude. You really got it cracked. It's those agents, those idiots that just sold Zeus to like a better org with more money and a better contract. They're the ones who don't know business. You've got it nailed as usual. Despite knowing that rule number 1 of negotiations is not to keep presenting offers without a response, right? What's the rule, Joe, when you're in an open market and you know other motivated bidders are heavily in a bidding war against each other to get that player? If you submit an offer that is shit, and if you knew anything about the space, you would know it's the lowest offer, would you just sit back and as they ignore your shitty little offer and keep going to the other people and going back and forth, would you just sit there while you know it's musical chairs and the second the music stops and he signs, it's over for you? Would you do that? Is that rule number 1? I think you might need to update your rules, you fucking moron. This doesn't even make sense. In that scenario, I'd even have my spies in the scene going, and you know Top Esports is talking to him. I've heard Hanwha's coming in with a big offer, and I'd be contacting the agents again. All right, you know what? 2 years, and I'll tell you what, you can have more say in the salary. So I'd be the ones trying to get them back on the phone that way, not just going, can we meet? Bro, you have to meet me. Bro, it has to be the COO. Bro, this is not the way this is done. Bro, what about a counter proposal? I'd be the one motivated to get them, because in this scenario, if I sit back and do nothing and I lose, I end up with Doran. But no, it was presented as, just the agents tricking us and all that. Give me a fucking break. Yet again, there was no counter proposal. He's just going to keep going. This guy's like a shit politician who just has the fucking auto cue in front of him. He just reads off it, mate. Yeah, he has no talking points of his own. These are just all party line shit. There was no counter proposal or clear communication from the agent, right? I'm not obliged in a game of information to actually give you all my information and be clear in my communication. In fact, as an agent, I'm incentivized intentionally to not be clear until the deal's done. Hence why people will say, he would like to play for you guys if you can meet these matches. That doesn't even mean it's true. He might say that to all the orgs and teams. By the way, spoiler, this job has an obvious added benefit if the person is willing to bend the truth or even be dishonest. It's obvious that person gains an edge. Now, you could say in the long run they might not, because orgs like this might blacklist you. But in the short term, that is going to be an edge. And spoiler, this is going to blow your mind. Orgs do that too. Orgs lie too. Orgs will tell 3 players, we really want you to be the one who joins if you can just meet these terms. But they're saying that to 2 other people, and they're secretly hoping that you don't agree to that and that the other guy does, because you're 3rd on their shortlist. That's how orgs work, by the way. Nonetheless, in keeping with the aforementioned aim, we were willing to match any offer for Zeus. That's convenient, isn't it? That's so convenient. That your initial offer's fuck all. Then he gets a massive offer from elsewhere. And you would have offered the whole time, but they just didn't get back to you. Almost like he doesn't want to join your org, pal. Have you ever thought maybe Zeus was like, don't bother following them then. I wanted them as my org to give me the best offer. Out the gate, I deserve it. I earned it. Maybe he thinks that. Who the fuck knows, right? If the agent had communicated his client's specific desires from the beginning, you can't know from the beginning. It's a fucking negotiation process. How could you know at the beginning of the negotiation what the best deal on offer from the other parties is? By definition, you have to take the offers and either ask for more, which is what you want, or go to the other party, show them it, and then they bid up further, and then you come back to another party and you get the ones that you think are in the bidding war to go, and the one that you think's a waste of fucking time, like T1, you just leave them out because you haven't got more fucking time. They had a whole year to sign you, but they didn't, did they? This process could have been so much smoother. For you. Why would your approach help Zeus in any way? The point is, he doesn't even think to care about how Zeus thinks or how the agents think. He just thinks if you don't do exactly everything that benefits him, even if it low-key fucks you, that you're like evil or unprofessional or something mental. Because that's fucking T1 privilege right there. That's the entitlement of being in T1 and thinking the whole scene is just there for you. Everyone else in Korean esports is the Washington Generals, and their job every single year, no matter what, is to just lose to you, the fucking Harlem Globetrotters of Korean esports. Go fuck yourself, Joe Marsh. Tell you what, Joe Marsh, I'd love to fucking drain that Korean swamp, pal. Then it goes, How much, I love the way they keep asking as well, they just give nothing back. How much was the difference in the offer between T1 and Hanwha Life Esports for Zeus? Again, in keeping with our aim of giving each of our players the top salary in his position, we were fully prepared to match any offers Zeus received. Pause. You know what that implies? That implies they would have gone really high, but they were going to start with a player that came from their academy squad, played for years. When they didn't have him, they couldn't make Worlds Finals. They got him into the lineup, made 3 Worlds Finals in a row, almost won all 3, and 2 of them he was the shit in and did really, really well in. You were going, I would pay you millions, but I'll tell you what, dickhead, if you'll take barely anything, I'll fucking offer you fuck all too. I'll try and fuck you hard, guy who I brought up in my space. In that case, you're not really very cool, are you? But weird, why, Joe, didn't you lead with the top salary that you were willing to offer? Oh, because you couldn't know what the others would offer, and it wouldn't be in your interest to offer the maximum amount initially. Yeah, it's almost like that's how negotiation. You're almost there, bro. You're so close to getting it, pal. But unfortunately for you, we were not given the opportunity to do so by his agent. By the way, crazy idea. If that was true and you believe in open communication and people giving counter offers, why didn't you just say after the initial offer wasn't accepted? Why didn't you contact them and say, by the way, we as T1 are totally open to matching any offers that are out there from any other org. So please come back to us before you sign with another org, and we will. And I promise we will match or try to match their offer. Now, look, they might not do it because they might not believe you, but I'm going to guess you didn't do that. I think after the fact, when you knew you couldn't fucking lowball him and make him join because it's T1, that I think you just say this now, and there's no skin in the game. No one ever has to be able to test whether what you're selling is true, right? And by the way, if it's indeed true you could have matched any offer, here's another thing that if you're a T1 stan, you should know that T1 are scumbags. That means you were willing to go potentially millions more for Zeus, but how do you get those millions more? Oh yeah, because you've already signed the Guma owner and all those guys to the lowball contract. So the other guys that did all that work for you and did awesome, yeah, we're going to fuck you guys, sign you to the mega lowball contract, and tell you, don't worry, but if you sign this though, it's worth it because we're all staying together at ZOFGK, and at the end, to make sure it's the Z part, we will pay millions more. He can have the millions. You know what, owner? You can go shove it up your arse, mate. You've already signed, dickhead. Lol, get wrecked. Sounds like owner and fucking Kerry and Zay they all should have done this approach, mate. They might have actually gotten paid. And also, how dare you say that your aim was to get people the top salary in their position when it's not what happened and it doesn't appear at all to have been how the process played out. That is just fucking gross. And stop saying you aim when you could never have done it and you didn't really aim. That's just saying, I'd like to live in Narnia, but you don't even know where Narnia is because it's fictional, you fucking wanker. The agent imposed an artificial deadline, claiming it was set by Hanwha Life. Now, by the way, yeah, agents could lie. Secondly, you know that idea, an artificial deadline? Right, all deadlines by definition would be artificial, you fucking cretin. There's not like a set day where Riot goes, if you're not signed by this day, you can't sign people anymore. You fucking moron. Every single day. That's like saying, you set an artificial time we should meet. Well, yeah, how else would I do it? What are you talking about? This guy, they make everything sound so fucking sinister. And you know he was eating human food. Oh my God, that's weird. Not like alien food and insect food, mate. Human food! What are you talking about, you lunatic? You're just trying to make normal things sound weird and sinister and ominous. Claiming it was set by Hanwha Life Esports. Yeah, you're claiming a lot of shit here, mate. We can't verify. However, after Zeus made his decision to leave, we spoke with Hanwha Life Esports, and they confirmed that no such deadline was ever established. Well, if there's one thing we all know, it's that no Korean would ever lie, and therefore no Korean businessman in Hanwha Life would ever lie, and even more importantly, no Korean businessman in Hanwha Life who just benefited massively from UT1 playing yourself, and you've heard that you're really angry and you want reprisals, would ever lie to you that it was the agent and not you at all who did something that might have contributed to your chaos and your fucked off season. And especially, are you ready? This is going to actually blow your mind, Joe Marsh. When I tell you this, the experience as this concept enters your brain will be like the fucking Monolith Stargate sequence from 2001 as you will like enhance you'll be enlightened as a human when I explain to you that your direct fucking rival might lie to you, idiot. That's another information game. They're not incentivized to tell you the truth and everything. They want to beat you in exactly these negotiations and let bozos like you think it was just the agents the whole time, you moron. This guy's so fucking stupid, it's crazy. It's like he actually lives in a world. I would say he lives in the world of the invention of lying because he doesn't think other people could lie. But spoiler, I think he's lying all the time. Maybe he thinks he's Ricky Gervais. He's the only one who's cracked out a lie, even though he claims the agents are doing it. In my opinion, someone is not being truthful in the situation. You know what, Joe? Here's what I'll say, mate. I would speculate that you actually, for a fact, can know someone isn't being truthful in this situation. You see what I mean there, Joe? I think you know for a fact at least one person isn't being truthful in this situation. You nailed that one. Having worked with Hanwha Life for many years, so irrelevant considering this situation didn't happen, I trust their word. Oh, okay, cool. Right, well, that's brilliant. Great. Regarding what was said. It's disheartening that such tactics played a role in the process, as we believed Zeus deserved transparency and fairness in making such a report. So now you're implying his agents kept this from him and kept him in the dark. How can you know that? Then I'll just put this out there. Bearing in mind, you find he deserved transparency. You didn't say from the beginning you were willing to match any offer. I thought you wanted transparency, mate. Secondly, he deserved fairness in making the important decision. Isn't it implied elsewhere you have lowballed people to get them to do a group deal where you sold them a false bill of goods that Zeus would be there as well? And so we're taking cuts to keep the band together. That doesn't seem like transparency or fairness. I'm most curious about the exact details and process of Zeus' departure. When was the decision made? I'd also like to know how the other players reacted and what the atmosphere within the team is like. From our standpoint, Zeus made his decision on the first day of the free agency period. Throughout the time leading up to that day, we had to get the impression that we were getting closer to an agreement until the mood suddenly changed around noon that day. Like, that doesn't match up with anything said. They themselves have said in this fucking piece that they essentially made an initial offer and got no counter offer and had no further aspect of the promotion and wouldn't even get information from the agent. But then we're told that they had this impression that they were getting closer and closer to the agreement until suddenly at the end, a negotiation process took place and you didn't sign the deal. He's made it sound like they were 99% of the way there, whereas actually, as far as I can tell, they were 1% of the way there. This guy's just a disingenuous piece of shit. As for how the other players reacted and the atmosphere within the team, we believe those conversations should remain private out of respect for everyone involved. So we get nothing. This whole thing is just nothing. It's just nothing. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's just the same thing over and 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 over again. It's just the same thing over and over again. It's just the same thing. Oh, here's a good one. The last one I'll read is this. It goes, what do you think was the biggest factor in losing Zeus? It goes, the biggest factor in losing Zeus, in my view, wasn't that we didn't bid enough and we didn't sign him before the free agency period. It was the influence of his agent and their agency. It always is. It never could be that other people offered more and better deals and Zeus accepted that and asked his agents to accept that. It's always just this agent, this magical agent that just keeps Zeus trapped and speaks for him. This particular group has a history of prioritizing financial gain over a broader perspective of what's truly best for the player. That is one of the most disgusting sentences I've ever seen a CEO of a company ever write. And the reason I say that is, right, their group has a history of prioritizing financial gain. By the way, that's the number one thing that the job of the agent is for the player. Is to give him the best possible contract he can get, because not only does it help them, but one of the few things in esports you can guarantee is your salary. You can't know how a lineup will play. You can't know what's successful. You can't know how you'll play, but you can know how good a contract you can get. So when Zeus has his best possible moment of leverage to negotiate a contract, the number one thing you'd ask for, especially when you have won Worlds twice, is the best financial contract you could get. But then he has the gall to imply that they prioritized him getting the most money and the best financial deal over, and then he calls it a broader perspective of what's truly best for the player. Now, the idea Joe Marsh can speak to what is truly best for Zeus, the player, is not only insane, but it's just wrong in this case. Like, am I missing something, guys? Isn't the Hanwha Life lineup now with Zeus better than the T1 lineup would be with Zeus? Doesn't it look better on paper right now? But his implication is always T1 must, by his logic, it's not a fact. It would just truly be best for Zeus to be on T1. No reason given though, by the way. But let's look. He goes, their approach often overlooks key factors like team legacy. Right? Team legacy now makes you win later on. So the reason why Owner and Kerrier just won 2 worlds is because of what Bang and Wolf and fucking Bengi and Blank and Tom and all those guys did like a decade earlier. That doesn't make any fucking sense at all. So then it goes player development. I could say you develop these players. I'll give you that one. They came from the academy. And long-term career success, right? Bearing in mind, Zeus has already played 3 or 4 years. How is signing a short deal with you, not for much money, going to help his long-term career success? When that deal ends, unless he wins Worlds again, he's going to be in a really bad position to renegotiate. He's going to get less value, and esports might even have gone down in terms of the market by then. Unfortunately, the tactics and gamesmanship, every person involved in negotiation, if they're smart, is using gamesmanship. This guy's pretending he's a Boy Scout, and they don't do that at T1. Fuck you. Used in this situation were not consistent with how professional agents typically operate. Is how you behaved in line with how top sports teams treat their best players after winning world championships when they want to build around them for years to come with a specific lineup and have already created merch around them? Is that in line? I would say no. I would say you were incredibly cynical how you behaved to this guy, and actually some of it even seems in bad faith, quite frankly, especially since you're later claiming your aim was for him to have the best possible financial situation and he could match any salary and offer. While the agent has since called to apologise, I believe that the gesture was more about saving face than genuine sincerity. Well, the irony of that, considering some of the public apologies I've seen you make, Joe Marsh, is far too much for me to take. Actions speak louder than words, says a guy whose actions have shown 0 facts or evidence. Additionally, he's just used words to say he won't tell you any information. And their behaviour in this matter revealed their true character. Right, if you ever do something Joe Marsh doesn't like, that's who you really are as a person. And he's now nailed. This is like some shit that like a fucking 13-year-old moody girlfriend says, like, no, you bastard. Now you've shown your true colours the way you turned me down on that day. Like, oh, fucking hell, how melodramatic are you fucking loser. It's worth noting that T1, by the way, I could say your behaviour in response showed your true character. Because when you thought you'd lost a negotiation, a game, you'd failed at a game, you all had a tantrum, sent your little spies, I would speculate, to fill the fucking scene with leaks and gossip and drama and all these fucked up angles that were all from the T1 perspective, as though Zeus was being abused and his agents were pieces of shit and they've lied and a million factors that you yourself don't even claim are the case. And then after all of that, you then apparently are going to contact TV stations to smear the agents. You're going to find legal, you're even going to dig up other things unrelated to this case because you're angry and you're mad. It sounds like that's revealed your true character. That's who you guys are when you lose the game. You're the people who tilt and flame the fuck out of people. And in this analogy, metaphorically try and DDoS them and try and steal their account, etc. Like, what are you fucking doing? What are you talking about, bozo? While the agent, let's see. It's worth noting that T1 provided an environment where Zeus thrived. That is true. Contributing to back-to-back world championships. I'll give you that. We met all the criteria for a player of his caliber. Now, he's purposely put player of his caliber because he can't say he did it for this player because this exact player got a better offer from elsewhere. So he has to play a game and say of his caliber. Both in terms of competitiveness. Oh, he's not even talking about the offer. He just means we gave him a team that he could succeed in because of competitive success and career growth. By the way, career growth for me would have to include my salary, my contracts. Why do they get worse over time, not better? This is the same agency that attempted to move Zeus to China last year for a higher payday, and it was only through Zeus' own initiative, reaching out to Koma, that he ultimately stayed with T1. Right, one, when you say tried to move him to China, wasn't it the team's option to sign Zeus? I don't know if he went in a free agency last year, to be fair on that one, but they're trying to imply that he didn't want to go to China, and that it was just the agency trying to sell him to China, and that Zeus is like, getting a fucking secret message to Koma like, please help, I'm being held hostage by the agents, they're trying to ship me off to China. And then he's like, this will not stand. And then he gets to stay with T1. I don't know that I believe you on that, mate. I just don't know that I believe you. I can't at this point. You just seem like such a piece of shit. This pattern of prioritising financial incentives over what's best for the player's overall future is concerning. Right, that's insane. The only future that's good, the best possible future for him has to be being in T1. Okay? While we respect Zeus' decision, you don't. You've repeatedly implied he didn't make it, his agents did it, and that they just did it for financial gain, not for what's best for him. He doesn't have human agency as an adult to be able to make a decision and know where he wants to go and play. And it couldn't, because he would never choose to play with anyone except T1, because you're that much of a lunatic. Oh, by the way, I'll just say this as well. There's even a world where Zeus did say that to T1, because imagine the pressure and the coercion of trying to talk to your bosses and the people who did give you everything and brought you up in Korean culture as well. Like, you're not going to go to him, yeah, I'm actually leaving. I didn't really like it here that much. I thought you really focused on Faker and fucking Gumayushi too much. Oh, the fans all hated on me and this offer's unacceptable. You're not going to say all that to your fucking boss. Are you a lunatic? Especially when you might have to play for T1 again in the future, for fuck's sake. Just nonsense, innit? Last one. How do you feel about the breakup of ZOFGK? It's always tough when a chapter ends, especially one as legendary as this. Zeus, Order, Faker, Gumayushi and Keria have not only been the greatest roster in T1 history, but also the greatest roster of all time in esports. Then why are you lowballing them, bro? Why not just give them all the greatest roster ever in esports, willing to go for another year in their prime? Sounds like they should have the biggest contracts in the history of esports. How far were their contracts, Joe, from the biggest contracts in the history of esports? Can you give me that? How about just in league? Biggest contracts ever in league for each position. Can you tell me what they are, Joe? Can you tell me what the delta would be, Joe? Can you tell me what the difference would be, Joe? No, Joe. You can only aim to do things you can't do and to be a disingenuous fuck. Isn't that right, Joe? Joe. Joe. I'm just going to keep saying Joe. Oh, one more. Is there a significant difference in the size of the deal offered to Zeus by T1 and Hanwha? Let's skip to this part. We would have matched any offer for Zeus, even if it was just a one-year deal. We were told he wanted long-term security, and we were ready to work to make that happen. However, we were not given the opportunity to match the offers. Right, so you were told he wanted long-term security, and you offered him, I heard, like, 1+1 thing or whatever earlier. I noticed you're yourself not coming out and correcting it. It wasn't a 3+1, it wasn't this, it wasn't that. When you don't do that, it's because you want people to be confused and not know what the information is. Anyway, I'm not going to read this whole thing. So what we'll do now is we'll skip to the other thing, which is Zeus' agent came up with his statement. So the play SPG, let's see. I'm going to skip all this shite where someone texts the editorial. Statement. Hello, this is The Play, the agency representing player Zeus. We sincerely thank all the fans who have continually supported Zeus. We also deeply apologise for... By the way, if you want... Oh, doesn't it give it away that they apologise story? No, in Korea, they're going to apologise anyway to save face and not make T1 seem totally like they could be wrecked. And they want to rebuild bridges to do business in Korea. That's got nothing to do with whether they're guilty or not. Korea is one of those places where people will like have to apologise even when the boss is wrong and they're right. That's the way that country works. Recently, Zeus transferred from T1 to Hanwha Life Esports, and fans have been expressing various opinions regarding his transfer. Respecting Zeus's wishes to avoid escalating disputes with his previous team, T1, which has been his close ally, our agency initially refrained from making an official statement on the matter. Do you want to know what I would take this part to be? Respecting his wishes to avoid escalating disputes. I actually think that infers that they could just make T1 look totally foolish and show that what they're saying is lies or some of the leaks are lies. But he doesn't want to do that, slam dunk T1 and then make it even more of a drama and keep it going even more. He's already signed, so he wants it to just go away and let it lie down. That's what I infer that as. Then it goes, however, as the AMA session announced, the Joe Marsh one, on the early morning of November 2022, contained factual inaccuracies and other misleading content, the agency decided to investigate the facts by consulting with both Hanwha Life Esports and Zeus and to issue an official statement. Our intention is to clearly communicate the facts to prevent misunderstandings and damage. Notice Joe Marsh wasn't giving you the facts. He was telling you he wouldn't give you the facts. He wouldn't even tell you how the other players felt about, for fuck's sake. And to sincerely convey the positions of both Zeus and our agency. We hope that this statement will deliver the truth about Zeus and that it will stop any groundless criticism directed at him. Here's the translation of the table content. So it says, detailed timeline of negotiations between the agency, Zeus, and T1 from November 12th to 19th. Remember, free agency began on the 19th at like 9 a.m. So on the 12th of November, first round of direct negotiations between T1 and the agency. So we're starting, okay, fair enough. We are actually starting, like, look, I would have started during the year before Worlds, but like I think you wanted Zeus anyway. That's why I think T1 is utterly blind and are lying about how much they cared about this player. This is the player I want to keep, even if I sell all the others, you fucking idiot. So it goes there. First round began, initial proposal from T1, proposal under review. Now, remember, we were told by T1 they made one offer and there was never a counter offer or any communication. So let's see what happens here. Initial proposal on the 12th. 15th, second round of direct negotiations between T1 and agency held in Gangnam, reassessment. 16th, first preliminary negotiation, second proposal from T1 rejected. So he's immediately, directly, factually argued that T1 is lying. Said, would review based on market value. So even when you make this offer, we're going to go and check what the market value is. Because on the 16th, and obviously we can't do that until the 19th. 17th, second preliminary negotiation rejected. Would review based on market value. The reason you're turning them down is you haven't had a good offer. So what you're saying here is you want to see what the market will offer. Then you will come back. That's why it says 18th, third proposal from T1 and direct communication between the player and T1 completely rejected. You want to see what the market value is. So you're not going to sign before market value opens. So on the 19th, 8:30, morning notification to the player about the final terms expected to be delivered during lunch proposal made by the agency. So at lunch, basically after like 3.5 hours of taking calls on the free agency date, we're going to tell you, the player, here's the final terms we think we've got from everyone. What do you want to do while free agency is still open and while they haven't all signed their players? Which do you want to go with? 10, so less than before the day, negotiations begin regarding terms of additional clauses proposal made by the agency, right? 11:40, 20 minutes before they're going to tell Zeus, right? Delivery of the first counter proposal made by T1. I think what T1 has done is this. They're just taking their counter proposal, pretending it's the first proposal, and because they then didn't get a following one, they claim, saying there's nothing else going on. But this, as far as we can tell, is their second proposal. So they've already lied. Then at 10 minutes past 1, delivery of the final response to the counter proposal made by the agency. 1:50, rejection of T1's final proposal. 2:10, direct communication between the player and T1, completed proposal made by T1. Additional requests, blah, 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 skip all that. 2:50, inquiry about the final proposal made. 2:53, direct communication between the player and T1, completed proposal made by T1. So how many fucking proposals are we getting here? 3:10, by the way, the agency has to not only be lying, they have to be egregiously lying by even trying to present a timeline and facts here. I'm always suspicious when one party's like, here's a bunch of facts, and the other one's like, he's lying, but I won't give you any counterfacts. I'll tell you exactly what he's lying about. You figure it out. 3:10, final proposal. 3:20, second counter proposal. 3:30 p.m., negotiations concluded due to T1's inability to accept the counter-proposal final decision made by the agency. Summary, during the negotiation period before the 19th, the agency consistently engaged in good faith conversations with T1, even while emphasising their desire to assess the player's market value in the free agency market. By the way, even if Zeus wanted to join T1, it's smart to test in the free agency market to know how reasonable a deal they're offering you. That says there, all this other shit. This is interesting. On the 19th, despite entering the free agency market, neither the agency nor Zeus agreed to any direct discussions with T1 before 10 a.m. or after 3 p.m. On the 19th, the negotiations with T1 continued constructively, but we're told they didn't, by T1. But they're not giving us any facts and timeline, you'll notice. Without considering overseas transfers. That even implies that you're prioritising Korea. A 3 p.m. deadline was communicated to T1 per the request of Hanwha Life Esports. So again, Hanwha... By the way, here's a crazy idea for you, Joe Marsh. And by the way, this might happen. T1's powerful, Kesper's powerful. At a minimum, it doesn't mean it's true, but at a minimum, I now expect, since both parties claim that the deadline came from Hanwha, and Hanwha's apparently willing to speak to T1, well then have Hanwha come out publicly and say that they weren't the ones who asked for the deadline. Have them put themselves on record, Joe Marsh, and then we can know that you're telling the truth. We won't, but it'll at least be like something. It'll be a pretty big gesture, even though, again, actions, not words, right? You know how that works. The negotiations ultimately concluded as T1 was unable to meet the terms by 3:30 p.m, leading to a termination of the talks, so very differently already. Detailed stance of the agency. From the beginning of his professional career, Zeus devoted himself to T1. He expressed his wish to remain with T1 out of loyalty and affection, even if it meant sacrificing better opportunities elsewhere. This was communicated clearly to the agency. Interesting. Sounds like the differential, though, between the deals was just too big, so it didn't matter. During the 2023 negotiations, T1 presented contract terms that were unacceptable. They tried to lowball him there, it's implied. The agency supported Zeus in exploring other teams while still leaving the final decision to him. Basically, they did this already last year, and so the second time around, they just got him a better deal, because that time he did accept it and potentially fucked himself, is what I'm reading that as. However, Zeus ultimately chose to pursue direct final negotiations with T1, demonstrating his loyalty. That's even implied he just went directly instead of doing it through the agents. Entering the 2024 free agent market, let's listen to this. Zeus acknowledged T1's legacy and agreed to negotiate under the condition that he would prioritise a T1 re-signing if the terms were reasonable and matched offers from other teams. That's the key part. Despite this, T1 made offers that failed to reflect the players' contributions, particularly as a key team member in securing back-to-back World Championship victories. T1 claims the conditions proposed reflected a long-term vision for the player. However, the proposed terms were not objectively advantageous to Zeus. You can debate whether that's true or not, making it difficult for him to agree. Apparently, he didn't agree with the terms. The final terms proposed by the agency to T1, including monetary aspects, options and duration, were not met by T1 in any way. He claims they made final terms, and they told them the numbers they had to meet. Consequently, Zeus ultimately signed with Hanwha Life Esports under conditions more favourable to him. The belief that Zeus prioritised overseas transfer over T1 due to contract terms is entirely false. Now, that's why Joe Marsh is putting that out there and why that leak magically came out. Because think about what would be most beneficial to T1 in light of this drama. To make it seem like, and the agents don't even care about him, they were trying to just whore his little arse out to everyone in fucking China for any amount of money. And he was like, please, no, Koma, I want to stay in Korea with you guys. Don't let them take me to postal school. Fuck Joe Marsh. We won't read. Actually, we will. It's not that long. Let's see. Negotiations and counteroffers during the priority period. After receiving T1's initial request, the agent consistently conveyed its stance that it wanted to evaluate Zeus's market value during the free agency period. T1's proposals cited the team's financial situation and the introduction of a salary cap system, arguing this could limit the player's value. It didn't. You were wrong, T1. You clearly do not care the most about this guy's future career and financial scenario. The agency, prioritising accurate market valuation, chose not to make an immediate counteroffer, but rather to confirm Zeus's value in the free agent market before initiating further discussions. The agent's stance was that instead of making a hasty decision, logical, it would prioritise protecting the player's rights by ensuring contract terms aligned with market standards. Despite not making counteroffers, negotiations with T1 were conducted earnestly. Even after the free agent evaluation, Zeus expressed his firm intention to remain with T1 if the terms were competitive. The claim that the agency did not negotiate actively or was simply waiting for other offers is inaccurate. The agency negotiated continuously while also ensuring transparency about the free agent market evaluation process. Then negotiations on the 19th. The agency did not agree to any direct meetings with T1 before 10 a.m. or after 3 p.m. on November 19th. During the free agent period, the agency consistently communicated its intention to evaluate market offers first before finalising any agreements. On November 19th, the agency requested a deadline of 3 p.m. Ooh. I think they're implying it's because it's the Hanwha Life one. He put in the next thing. Negotiations continued past the deadline, but no agreement was reached due to T1's inability to accept the proposed terms. It was emphasised that the 3 p.m. deadline was set upon Hanwha Life's request. Totally reasonable, by the way. If you haven't told us by this time, then we're going to go with someone else. The extended deadline until 3:30 p.m. was also not sufficient to finalise any agreements. We were told there were no deadlines, remember. Despite the ongoing negotiations, both parties ultimately concluded that no further extensions were possible. As in, T1 agrees that we're not going to do anything further beyond this. They just maybe say otherwise now. Communication after the contract conclusion. After negotiation ended, the agency reached out to T1 on November 21st to express regret and understanding regarding the situation. The agency refrained from making any additional public statements as true until Joe Marsh came out and started firing. By the way, if what they're saying ends up being true, Joe Marsh absolutely, already T1 played themselves in the offseason and Joe Marsh then just took out a shotgun and blew their own feet off by making themselves complete fools. If this all doesn't come out, we could speculate on all the rest of it. It could always be up in the air. People can even think these agents are bad guys. This looks like they're way more forthcoming than Joe Marsh was. He just pretended to be forthcoming and kept saying he was being forthcoming while not being forthcoming. So instead choosing to handle the matter privately, the opposite of T1 in other words. The agency regrets any misunderstandings caused by accusations suggesting the situation was their fault. And then obviously it's time sensitive when you have free agency. There were no agreements and proposals made regarding contract extensions. Yeah, that's it. That's basically it. So obviously some of that information is different from the first set of info. But let's get into the major points here, right? The main issue for me is that the whole thing people care about isn't even the incredible game changer that this might change who wins worlds or the balance of power in Korea or between the regions or for the future of T1s, or it's all about the drama. It's all about the drama of this signing. It's being presented as these shady agents, but it comes off to me way more as either, if I'm being generous, the naivety of T1 and their fans, or just T1 being disingenuous, lying fox, trying to get their way and expecting to always be given their way and a win, even when they don't know how to win or the methodology, and then their fans being, I don't know, crazy, entitled, lunatic brats. Because as usual, this discussion on Reddit and Twitter was a fucking nightmare because it was insanely skewed. So there was only one perspective. It's just what T1 wants and what is best for T1. I've always said Reddit is a waste of time when you're talking about TSM in North America. Their fans will skew every topic. Fnatic in Europe, their fans will skew every topic. And you already know T1 fans everywhere skew everything from all around the world about Korean esports. So at the outset, quick question. Why was it even possible for Zeus to leave T1 without it being their decision? Because his contract had expired. If you don't want it to be the player's choice, don't let his contract expire. T1 could have re-signed him any time during this last year. They were basically playing the game of musical chairs, you know, where you're trying to get one of limited number of seats, and when the music stops, you have to sit down. If there isn't a chair, you lose. And in this analogy, they had a chance to book either their favourite chair or the best or second best chair, top laner available from Korea. Keen might be the other option. And instead, they chose not to sign their best chair or the second best chair. They gambled that they would be able to get the best or second best chair, but at like really, really cynical rates and offers because he used to play for you. So there should be an extra reason for him to sign with you rather than because this is actually the best deal for where he is in his career, representing his market value. In fact, you even wanted him initially to sign without even knowing his market value, but at lower amounts, as was proven by the negotiation that later took place. So you gambled while playing musical chairs and ended up with the last chair available. There were 3 chairs you could have had, and you ended up with the worst of the 3. Sounds like you aren't good at musical chairs and shouldn't play musical chairs, which you didn't have to do. But as you can see, you didn't want to commit to Zeus long term. You did at the end once you won Worlds, and then you realised the merch thing and the fan thing, and then you wanted that whole roster into brand as ZOFGK, didn't you? So logically, the fact that you just kept this guy on a 1-year contract that was running out after he won Worlds, and then just literally starting the negotiations like 6 days or something before free agency, that implies to me you don't really want to commit to him. You don't see him as that important. You didn't even sign him first. You don't believe in him as the key building piece for the long term. Your offer isn't long term. You're not building around him long term. And you've treated him like an afterthought at the end that you can sign in the 11th hour no matter what because he used to be in T1. So I think T1 is far from fucking as innocent as they're pretending to be here. By the way, there's even that whole thing where people were speculating that because of the clause to win international tournaments, like maybe that, if it had happened, would have given you more cap space. So you should be paying more, not less. And by the way, haven't you just won the World Skins? They make you mega box. That could offset some of the difference in salary. The other teams didn't win the World Skins, so how are they ever going to be able to match what you're offering? How about get sponsorship eraser on this 5-man lineup? How about sell merch on that? These are all things that make your org money or get your morg more money to spend that you could have used to then beat out other people in negotiations. They don't have all those same things, but somehow they're beating you out. Sounds like you shouldn't play for you, mate. The messaging all year long makes it seem as if T1 was very unsure about the future of their roster, minus Faker, hence the contract statement. The real premise was, if they fail, maybe everyone except Faker leaves. And by the way, they maybe even then would have to consider, does he retire? Does he have to retire because of the head banging incident, or because he has a hand injury, or because of this DDoSing shit? So T1 gambled that they want to see how Worlds went. Then they signed the other players, the less important ones, in light of the fact that almost every other player you could have still fixed the lineup with, like the second or third option. Zeus was the only one where the third option made the lineup way worse. So you basically you signed the other players first, let him be the last piece, despite being arguably the most important to sign since you've already got Faker. You didn't leave yourself any options. You painted yourself into a corner. If you knew you couldn't have Zeus, by the way, then you could have pivoted completely. You could have gone for Ruler as your ADC or some other monster ADC. Then you could have Doran or Keen top and it would still work, right? The roster could be a different type of a team. Instead, you just made a shitter version of T1. Oh, by the way, you could also ask Faker, does he want to role swap there? He wants to be jungle or something. Now you get Chovyus available. Maybe now you have the best mid lane and the best player and you have Faker in the team still. You can still market around that. You didn't do any of these things, but you left the door open to do it, I notice. Why are fans, by the way, mentioning Zeus and his agent like screwing T1 by waiting for Keen to be signed? I still don't get that part. That screws T1, but it doesn't, like, it's not bad in the sense of like screwing them like you're not allowed to do it. Like the premise they claim, right, is that because the agency at its base represents both, that like, oh, and then you know what, they let Keen sign first, so then it was even worse for T1 because then there's only Zeus available. Yeah, that sounds like you've made the deal even better. Now what you're saying there is, now you're going to have to give us what we want because now it's Zeus or Doran. And then this analogy, what T1's done is go, well, I'm not giving you what you want for Zeus. And then go, what the hell, no, I have to accept Doran. Oh, this is unfair, I didn't want that, I wanted Keen or Zeus. Well, you misplayed your fucking hand then, didn't you, dum-dum? They were both available. You got neither because of how you played it. And it actually sounds like a masterclass from this agency. Kane's still on the best team, potentially. Now, who knows whether he wants to be or not? We can't comment on that. And Zeus got a Banediesel. Oh, and T1 ended up screwed. If you don't like T1, I don't know what the agents think. Fucking sounds like 3 out of 3 there, doesn't it? Sounds brilliant. Also, we're just ignoring that if you couldn't sign Zeus, you then wanted Keen. Is he supposed to just wait around too? He's supposed to wait around to you to do the slowest negotiation ever, where you just lowball and keep offering shit offers, and then just saying stuff like, you know, it'd be truly best for him to stay with us. And then if he doesn't do it, you're then, as the representative of Keen, supposed to wait with him in your back pocket and go, well, I'm sorry there, Mr. T1, sir. Can I offer you Keen? Potentially an even better player. Can I just give you him instead? Also for fuck all money and contract. Please, 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 sir. Please, please, may I offer you and be transparent, sir? And here's exactly how much you could sign him for. Like, what the fuck is this? By the way, what happened to loyalty? Why are you even considering signing Keen? Also, here's a scenario. We can only go off what they've said, where they claim it's the first priority to sign Zeus and he wanted to join. What about this, guys? Imagine how what else this offseason could have played out. Imagine if T1 the offer for Zeus didn't get matched and they didn't like the counter proposal. So they'd been able, let's imagine it was a different agent representing Keen. They had just gone and they just signed Keen instead. Now, in that scenario, wouldn't Zeus be the one just left with nowhere else to go and all the leverage would be against him suddenly? He'd only have a few spots. I mean, not really. He'd still have a place in LPL, but now he wouldn't have T1 offer to counter the other ones with, would he? Oh, but that's okay for T1 to do that. T1 can do whatever makes sense for them, but Zeus and his agents can't do what makes sense for themselves, not T1. Funny how that works, isn't it? As soon as Keen signed with Gen G, by the way, yes, the agents had crazy leverage with Zeus and T1. That sounds like they played it correctly. That's why if you're T1, you're massively incentivized to make sure you're the first one to sign either of those two players. I mean, if you're really that mad about Doran joining, which gives away, like I said earlier on in the video, that Zeus was way more important than you implied, and especially for like fucking picking up the slack for the rest of the team like Faker, etc., and Gumayushi, then it sounds to me like you should never have allowed a world where there's only one of them available and now you're at their whim. You should have been doing anything you could to sign either of those two, and you should be the first one to sign one of them because it was a must. Gen G could have gotten away without having Keen. Hanwha Life is better now they haven't got Doran. You're the only one who misplayed this. You misplayed that completely, especially added to all the rest. Think about everything added together. You signed all the others. You potentially lowballed some of them. You're making merch off it. You began selling the merch. Now it's all fallen apart because you let it go to the last minute and got ghosted by your own logic. By the way, Zeus has won back-to-back world championships. He is due to get mega paid from LCK or LPL. But T1 didn't want to offer him a long-term contract in Megabox. So he went to a team that did. Now, did the agents play T1? Yes, it's a game. They played and they won. They played them for their own benefit and Zeus's benefit. The only fucking people's benefits they should care about, you idiots. Looks to me like they misled T1 and maybe even lied to them. Although I have to say, their statement looks a lot more plausible than the T1. Even if so, well, it matters to me because I care about honesty. You guys don't. It's not even illegal to be dishonest in some of these cases. So why does everyone have to suddenly pretend to care because T1 cares and Joe Marsh's feelings are hurt? Or you're a stand for ZOFGK. If what he's done is illegal, sue him. Say as much, state as much on the record, put your skin in the game. You won't, of course. Notice how Joe Marsh wasn't the one saying about how they're going to contact TV stations and it's illegal and we're going to like sue them in court. He was just kind of saying it was fucked up, but he didn't really say much more. Weird how that goes, isn't it? By the way, here's another angle I've got for you. I'm going to get to this in a minute. I'll give this exact example. How come if it's an org you don't like G2, and some player you do like, you just 180 your principle? Like, if this was Rekkles fucking over G2, you'd all go, lol, he wrecked them. Oh, G2 played themselves there because you like the player and you dislike the org. But magically, Zeus is a piece of shit and T1 of the best, even though what's Zeus done wrong? Outcome, agents want the best outcome for them and Zeus, not T1. Also, by the way, who the fuck knows about the whole 40 minutes late thing? It's disputed by everyone on that one. I said before, having the same agency isn't even a rare thing, even though it would apparently be like different agencies, but the same base people running them is the premise. The idea that Zeus owes it to T1 to play for them, as if they gave him everything, is fucking gross. Because if that was true, then they could give everything to someone else and it wouldn't be a problem. Acting like Zeus staying in T1 is the best for him, I think is pathetic. Look, for the curiosity purposes, I don't mind it. It would be an interesting run back, but I wouldn't predict you to win any more tournaments. It's completely out of nowhere when they win these worlds. So I don't think that is the best possible team he could be on. Speaking as if he's obligated to take a short-term deal coming off a fucking worlds win is insane. He is in the ultimate bargaining position you can by definition ever be in as a young player still, and also one who hasn't been mega paid yet and doesn't have that much money. Acting as if him and his agents are obliged to continue negotiating when you're not matching his nonsense. It's just fucking ridiculous. So let me give these two examples of other situations that show how pathetic the fan response is. Do you remember the G2 Perkz scenario? So at the end of 2020, Perkz wanted to leave G2 as he wanted to play mid lane again, but they already had Caps, and I've heard they'd promised Caps' dad will never take mid from him if he wants to play, if he joins the team while Perkz is here, because obviously you'll have a concern that Perkz wants to play mid. So as a result, Caps had org priority, so you couldn't stay if you had to play mid, so they were going to have to sell Perkz. And Perkz and a lot of Fnatic fans apparently wanted him to go to Fnatic. That would be the next most viable place to go to even battle G2. But since Perkz was under contract, not like Zeus and T1, with G2, he'd re-signed that year like they all had. It was G2's option as to whether they sold him or benched him. So they didn't want to sell him to a direct rival in their region. Entirely their prerogative. That's why they re-signed him. So they sold him for Megabucks to Cloud9 in the LCS, a totally different region. Now fans had a tantrum and said G2 was scummy and was screwing over Perkz, Fnatic and LEC. By the way, Perkz finished top 8 at Worlds that year. Said G2 was selfish for serving their own interests instead of Perkz' Fnatic's or the LEC's. Now, let's just contrast that with this situation. Zeus' contract expires. He's speaking to more than one team. His agents give G2 terms under which he's willing to sign and play with them, potentially. That's what we claimed. They claim they did. T1 don't agree to the terms and aren't able to further negotiations to a successful point before he signs with what will arguably be a better team and is an org that looks like it is willing to spend more money and for a better contract. Fans just wanted the outcome to be the one that they demand and will reverse engineer who the asshole is to fit that. So G2 isn't allowed to choose where they sell their contracted players, but Zeus, a free agent, isn't allowed to choose where he plays for free agency. Now let's go to another scenario. I just gave you the Rekkles one. Rekkles and Fnatic. So the same time period, 2020 off-season, Rekkles was a free agent, but he apparently verbally said he'd stay in Fnatic for 2021. So they started building the team around him. Then he just left anyway to go to G2 to replace the outgoing Perkz. By the way, G2 are a better team and for a better contract. A mega contract that I've heard. Even though that's the same off-season that the Perkz drama happened. So somehow Rekkles wasn't a selfish piece of shit who screwed Fnatic, but Carlos and G2 are selfish pieces of shit for not selling a player somewhere they don't want to sell him when it's their option because they're paying him his salary. In fact, Rekkles went even further than that. He even recently made public posts implying he's the one who was mistreated by Fnatic, but referring to a later stint. Conveniently leaving that whole, the 2 times he just left Fnatic high and dry out of it. So why is Zeus in the wrong, but Rekkles in the right? Now, there is also the Korean aspect. They do, I will say, as a way of characterizing, they will feel if they're your boss, like they own you, they owe you everything, they gave you the chance, so whatever you did with that, somehow them, it's not your skill and your talent and your hard work and your ability. No, they gave you the initial go, so they get all the credit. That's just how Korean companies are. I've told this story before. I had a girlfriend where she would just be working mad overtime and doing all insane shit on projects, and then she would tell me like, oh, I won't get paid anything extra for the overtime, I'm just expected to do it. And yeah, my boss just took credit for the good ideas that I gave, and so he got a promotion, not me. Like, but I was like, that's so corrupt. She was like, that's just the way it is here. So you just have to understand that's how it all works, and everyone expects it to be that way, and everyone kind of gets it. That's how it is. So I think that's the bigger issue. I think it's actually the Korean cultural concept of what they think of free agency and whether you're allowed to be a player. If you don't know, back in the day in Broodwar, it was a nightmare. The old Kesper system was they made it so predatory for the orgs to keep their top talent rather than have a giant free agency where it's like football and everyone's moving for megabucks left and right to other countries and teams. They made it where if a player wanted to leave a team and you agreed to a transfer, the other team that signed him, if he was under contract, had to pay him his current contract he signed with them and pay you the contract as well, or something mad like that. They had to like pay you the salary and him as well. So essentially, you were only incentivized to do it if you had megabucks and it really was like Flash or something you could sign. So like famously, like Bisu famously moved over to SK Telecom, funnily enough, for a mega contract, etc. like that. This is why Jaedong initially couldn't leave Hwasong Oz for a while. Like his old father, I think, was negotiating the contract. So Korean system was way worse back in the day. I even think one of the only reasons it's now vaguely reasonable is because actually of people like the LPL, outside markets that have massive amounts of money and are willing to import your players. Because before the Korean exodus of 2015, late 2014, I can tell you those players were the absolute best players in the world, the Samsung players, and I've heard they were making outrageously low amounts of money. Like I've heard they might have been making, shit like 20k a year salary, while fuckers like Bjergsen were on like, the 300k a year or 500k a year or 700k a year salaries. Like that was fucking insane. I mean, in 2014 it'd be more like the 300k a year. Like you don't know how ridiculous it was. So actually it was only being forced to level their shit up that made Korea vaguely reasonable to the main people who they rely on and the lifeblood of the scene, the fucking pro players. Then T1 fans have just been absolutely on one on this one. They have acted so fucking entitled. Think how bad they are. Their org already in history has the most LCK and Worlds titles. And they're still this bad and act like they are owed not just more, but everything. They all seemingly have a fucking parasocial relationship that is just pathetic. Like, it's been presented like these agents had Zeus locked in a closet, gagged, and they did all of this to be evil to him, to not put him to where he wants to go, and just to fuck T1. The victim complex is so fucking crazy from these people in T1 and the fucking fans. These fans, by the way, are a great reason to get the fuck away from T1, I'll tell you that right now. Like, I'll make some predictions for you. If Hanwha Life ever lose even a regular season series to T1, the very same fans who claimed they loved Zeus will be super shitty to him and treat him like a traitor who betrayed everything. Meanwhile, he was the best player in their team for 3 years, won them an LCK in the era of fucking Chovy and 2 Worlds in the era of Chovy and Knight. That's the guy you deserve to give infinite flowers to. And by the way, who the team then chose, after all that I just said, to not offer a long-term contract and build around or appropriately compensate for becoming a fucking world champion 2 times over. Remember, there's no other org in esports has even won 2 fucking worlds in League. They've won 2 just with Zeus after years of not winning, and they didn't even give him the mega contract. So he chose to go to a better team domestically and get all of those things. I'll also predict another thing, that these same fans, they're coping now that they love Doran and it'll all be okay. But even if he plays well, they will blame him permanently for everything that happens and be super shitty to him. And I even predict they will either send trucks about him or the org at some point in 2025 when the team is really failing and having a hard time. The shithead orgs apparently are even punishing the org, if you don't know. Like, supposedly, they're going to lose like potentially millions of dollars from like all the fucking merch that they'd already made to commemorate the 2024 alert, because people now, to rage about there being no more ZOFGK, are like cancelling their fucking and refunding their order, because that's how cool T1 fans are. By the way, here's a fucking comment that you just have to see. It has to be seen to be believed. It is so fucking unbelievable. This comment summarises for me why T1 fans are fucking mental. So, read this comment and then we'll interpret it. It goes, Kerrier and owner should sue them too because they signed their law contracts after Zeus gave T1 verbal agreement and they were 100% convinced roster going to stay the same. If it's all part of a bigger plan, that's so unfair from Zeus also to his teammates. Notice it's never unfair from T1. Think about what he just said. Why would T1 not be the bad one for lowballing 2 fucking back-to-back Worlds winners, mate? They're getting World skins, they're selling merch, and they're not paying top dollar to the people who just won Worlds. Also, you can argue it's T1 that fucked them in your actual statement. They sold them a false bill of goods saying he's to get a verbal agreement so we'll make the whole lineup again. If we all stay, we'll all take the cut, right? Also, you're even implying yourself these players could have gotten more either from T1 or the market. You yourself agree with the premise. You just don't know that what you're arguing against is the solution to the problem you're presenting. Like maybe Kerrier could have gone to fucking Gen G or something. Maybe D Plus want to spend all their budget on Kerrier to have a chance to win, suddenly have shot calling or something. Maybe Gumayushi could be on KT right now with BDD. They've got loads of money this off-season. Nothing ever fucking splashes back on T1. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever noticed that? And then similarly, supposedly T1 is so spiteful that on their page where they list the academy players, they've just removed Zeus. He didn't exist. It's 1984. What do you mean? We never had a top laner called Zeus. Don't you mean Marin? Or Canna? Oh shit, no, we deleted Canna too. Don't you mean Marin or Duke? Or Impact? Or Khan? Give me a fucking break. Dr. Dre had NWA, DMX had the Rough Riders, and who is the crew holding me down, supporting me when necessary? It is, of course, my Patreon subscribers, the Skrilluminati. So this video, along with all the others on my channel, is kindly supported by Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Animosity, Banediesel, Jasun, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Torin, and you know who a special thanks goes out to because it's always my main man, Jerky's Minion. Do you want to ask a question for my video AMA? Do you want to find out who are going to be the guests on future interview episodes? Do you want to know who the guests are on my talk shows? Or maybe you'd like to suggest a topic or a guest. Perhaps you even want to take part in one of those lengthy, tailored to you discussions around esports that I do with the top tier donators. If any of those perks or others catch your fancy, then put your money where your mouth is, support me and join the Skrilluminati today via the Patreon link where in the description box below.